Hello, everyone. It is Thursday, the 30th of July, 2026, and I did not do a video yesterday. Again, I was working on some of the research notes that I've put together over the years because I want to send more stuff, compile more things together, and send them out so that people can take a look at, again, some science stuff. So, anyways, and yesterday was a big day, full moon in Aquarius, I think it was. Um, I believe it was. Anyways, and so we got the full moon that was yesterday. And in my prediction video at the beginning of the year, I did say that I thought that the 29th of July, 2026 would be like a really big day, a day of significance internationally. And I didn't know what that was going to be. And yeah, and so I was thinking more along like the negative lines because there's just been like a lot of negative news and a lot of like false flags and propaganda and psychological operations and things happening and blaming it on other people, all this stuff, again, to keep us divided, to keep us distracted and living in fear, etc., and not at all paying attention to actual facts. And so I am absolutely right. Like, so even though Fauci, this fucking gremlin, right? Likely won't get jail. I do hope that he's in the courts, civil or whatever, for the rest of his disgusting life before he goes to hell. Um, yeah, but there's even still people, again, that are doubling down, right? People that didn't look at any research from the beginning. They just, and again, this is not a slant on people that got the shot. I've never said that, right? Because they were lied to, right? By people like Fauci. I've given examples over the years just how much pressure was put on people, especially in Canada, and it ruined lives, it ruined relationships, it ruined so many different things, careers, including mine, right? And so I had people, I was working in the fucking highest levels of government, unnecessary to swear, but and the information that again people are talking about and finally exposing publicly, right, for the world to see during these hearings. It's not a trial, but it's hearings. um, Vindicated, right? And so many people within my network, right? I was sharing the medical, scientific, and government data, chief of defense staff, you name directors of Global Affairs Canada, you friggin' name it. I was special forces people all over the place, and again getting shut down. I was getting threatened. I was getting harassed, even by people that I knew for 20 plus years. I've served with, deployed with, right? So even relationships that I had with people I was doing work contracts with, severed that because it got to a point after I'm trying to share the lab leak information, after I'm trying to share the VAERS, all of these things I'm sharing, and these fucking people don't want to, again, even look at it, right? And then calling me crazy, reputational damage, all that stuff. And again, I was right. And again, if you would have looked at the information, right? Because taxpayers, by the way, you pay a lot of money for these services, right? You're getting the elite. I will give you that, right? But when they are not even looking at factual data from Canadian experts, like that is a red flag for me, right? And I'm like, you're getting your information from Tel Aviv, and you're getting it from the UK, and you're getting it from, but you're not getting it from me. You're getting it from NATO, your NATO friends, people that I know as well, people that I've worked with, and people that I even actually I was even offered a job to work like with NATO as a as a contract work as contract work post military. And I was looking at the training plan and stuff like that, and talking to this guy about this. And again, I was too busy with other things, so I just wasn't able to take that piece on. But so again, even with people that have worked in the UN and NATO, like I know people that are still serving, that have been even to Bulgaria and all these, the fucking Poland, etc., Ukraine, and like post military. So like I really never even really got out, like anyways, until COVID hit, right? And then even when people were going to Ukraine and they were going to Afghanistan for the pullout and stuff like that, or doing security work for like even Jordan Peterson, I had to decline those contracts because I wasn't vaccinated, right? And so like this is what I mean, like people that actually held the line, and actually people that like lost everything. Like I feel like the us whistleblowers and people that went to jail and that were charged and that were targeted, all of this stuff. I do think that we need to start getting platformed by mainstream media, minimum, and then also like again reached out to by people within government to talk to us. And we've been offering these conversations now for years. I've been sharing this information for years, like with tip lines and stuff like that. And people I know, even field team members with CSIS, sharing information about stuff. And it's like, I'm getting shut out, right? And again, I'm going to reiterate, we have now spies, Chinese spies that were working with NATO, right? And in places and Mons and stuff like that, that I literally know people. I've worked with them, I've deployed with them, uh, and they're also working these like again in these areas and stuff like that with these people. And it's frustrating because I'm like, I've been literally, even with the Chinese spy stuff, look at my videos for years now. I'm like, this is a concern as well, because they have embedded in all levels of our government, our academia. And I was giving names and stuff like that. And anyways, I'm going on all these rants because, again, it's so incredibly frustrating that the people that actually fought for this, right, at the right levels, that were shut down. Like, we're still in the courts, we're getting punished still, like not getting our contracts. Even civilians like Tamara Leash and Pat King and Chris Barber and others, they appeals, again, the Crown, even now, like even in this month, right, denying Pat King's appeal for his original court sentencing, because it was absolutely disgusting, two-tier justice system. And no one, anyways, I won't get into that stuff. But then, so they deny his appeal, and then the Crown, these fucking assholes, again, appeal the original decision to give him even more strict fines and charges, right? And they want more jail. And they're doing the same thing to these other people. So if people don't start sharing this to Canadian media and stuff like that, and actually, again, because now we have all the proof you need, right? So if you're going to be contacting your local mayor or district, whatever you want to call it, your district leader or whoever you want to contact, has to be respectful and peaceful. But this is the information that you need to share, and that you need to let these people know. Like, if you're not even looking at these hearings, right, and the information that's coming out, and then actually going into the more research of what they're talking about, like the evidence that they actually have, because I have that, so many other people have that, right? Then they're not doing their due diligence, right? And so, like, this can and will happen again if we don't know why and how it happened to begin with, like this one, right? Just like 9/11, right? Where we are not catching up on big things that have happened in the past, right? Where there is a shadow body, a steering committee, whatever you want to call it, that are, again, influencing operations domestically and internationally. And again, they're screwing over our elite, right? So, like, this is even Sean Ryan. Like, he got into this. He was he's former special forces, and even calling out people like Dan Crenshaw, right? Like, these guys have sold out, right? These top tier fucking people, right? And people that I've worked with before, like in the military and even out the Five Eyes community, and exceptional human beings, fucking exceptional when I say that. And I do think that JTF2 has the best in the world, and I stand by that. And again, I'm also biased, obviously, as a Canadian, but they're getting screwed over and lied to by these political types, right, that have never, done anything of service, can't even do a push-up, like, again, no meaningful careers where they get experience in order to be like real leaders for a country. And they are dictating what these elite, phenomenal human beings do, right? And then that also, again, is what happens first before other things happen, right? There's the tip of the spear, but there's also people within certain communities, or whatever you want to call it, agencies, organizations, that will go into places and respond first, right? Even Global Affairs Canada with their consulates, and working with the embassies all over the world, right? I was training these people, again, the first on the ground to respond to natural and man-made disasters. And now they're giving their companies to people, again, that the courses are nowhere near as good as when I did it. And again, I'm told by people still in, and even the courses that they're doing, they're not recertifying like every year or 2 years. And so there's even skill fade, like people, again, cycling through, yeah, and not getting, again, a lot of accurate information depending on where they're getting it from. I'm all over the place, but I'll get to some of my stories before I get into a video I want to watch with people. And actually, it's going to be like a couple of videos, and it's going to be about Fauci and people's critique of it. And again, because people are obviously not going to be watching all the hearings, and so there's a few people I know that are good at, like, they always put together like good highlight reels of, of good clips from these hearings, because they are long. Yeah, this is Fauci every night when he was writing in his diary. This guy, I am amazing. And that is a conversation I would have loved to have had over the years if I was like to see like Bill Gates or Fauci, right? Just like, who the fuck do you think you are? You dorks. You losers. Anyways, I'm sorry for being hateful. It's just, again, like this, again, significantly ruined my life and my relationships too for over 2 years, right? Because again, Ontario, Quebec had really strict measures during this period. And Absolutely wild. So it wasn't a year, it wasn't 2 years. There's people still in the courts, including Helen Gruce, Ottawa Police Services for over 20 plus years, and she's still in the courts, and other people as well that you're not even hearing about. So many people in the courts, and lives ruined, and people again because it's so long and so many court fees and stuff like that. Again, these are just regular everyday hero types, right? That just again held the line and were pushing back against these liar clowns like Fauci, and yeah, and so even Helen right now she's like over $500,000 in debt. Ottawa Police Services, right? Like she's not making a lot of money, and she's a grandmother and stuff like that as well. And it's just absolutely disgusting. Ooh, I think she's a grandmother, but anyways, I have to ask her about that because again, she has two older sons, play hockey and stuff like that. But anyway, and yeah, not rich, right? And again, fighting for Canadians, right? And I think it was like the biggest court case that should have been heard, and a lot of people again shutting it down because it's in Ottawa, and we've got like 95% of the Ottawa population again watching CBC, Global News, Power and Politics, thinking that these are actually neutral platforms, which is hilarious. And even again, chiefs of police during COVID, right? They admitted that they were getting their news or their information rather, their information from the news. I couldn't even believe it. And yeah, so you had people like this guy that was a business owner and sold all of his businesses because he was getting fucked over during COVID, and then he started again running for office. Okay, and I said there are people that were hardworking, middle class, middle upper class type people, hard workers though, and again planning for their future and their children's futures and et cetera, and setting up the conditions for their parents again to be able to live comfortably in retirement again because of the quality of life in Canada so low at this point. And again, our economy again, it's a disaster, despite the fact what liars say, right? I'm talking about people in cabinet and stuff like that. They're gonna make it seem like everything that we're experiencing, like the increase in the cost of everything, that this is somehow not happening, and that you know we have not been impacted by failed policies and censorship bills and gun buybacks, all this stuff that again is part of Marxist communism. But anyways, I'm all over the place. So wow, Senator Bernie Moreno just blew up on Dr. Fauci. He's not even a doctor. I would strike that. After his policies caused a mother to be arrested for watching a football game with her own family outside, and then he goes on to say,
sitting in front of you 6 years later, saying, "Who the fuck do you think you were for doing that?" It is a total disgrace what you did to this country. And if my Democrat colleagues are standing there defending you, I hope the voters of the United States of America watch the clips of every one of you doting on a guy who was more interested in being a celebrity than saving American people. Here I am sitting in front of you 6 years later saying, "Who the f-"
yeah, dear diary.
Here I am sitting in front of you 6 years.
Julia Roberts loves me. Whatever. Anyway. This is a funny video.
Can you do me a favor in the audience and stand up if during the time of the COVID pandemic, you were called a racist for calling the virus a Wuhan virus or the China virus?
Yep.
If you thought the 6-foot rule was total crap, if you thought the vaccine wasn't something that you should take, if you thought it was outrageous the way the mask policy was rolled out, if you were fired from your job for not taking that vaccine, including members of the military, if you thought closing schools was catastrophically stupid, and that you thought that during these times saying these things made you somehow a lesser human being.
So many people stood up just in that room, but again,
Dr. Fauci, can you just turn around and look at the people behind you?
Yeah, and he wouldn't even look.
He won't turn around.
You're not willing to do that? That's not a question. It's not a question. To your lawyer, it's not a question. It's a request. All you have to do is look up from your lawyers.
A lot of time.
And look at the people.
Yeah, and this is from Dean Allison. So there are members of parliament in Canada that are speaking up on this, but again, it's not a lot yet, right? Like I would really like it again if people like Mario for the North and Moose on the Loose and Jasmine Lane and more people in government and Pierre Poilievre, like people need to speak about this stuff, right? This is the reason why Pierre Poilievre, again, he's never going to watch my channel, but this is why Aaron O'Toole didn't win, right? People like myself didn't vote conservative in 2021 because this clown, again, was pushing the same bullshit, again, that was causing harm and death to people. And this would be significantly impacting us generationally. And we were saying it at the time, and no one was listening to us. And then, by the way, even voting PPC, getting you on another fucking list, like not just attending the Freedom Convoy. Anyways, wild. And until this is addressed, and until more people in the Conservative Party start addressing this stuff, right? Because a lot of conservatives, more conservatives, arguably than liberals, I would say as well, were impacted by these measures, and businesses fucked over. So not even just mine, but multiple other people I know that were first responder types and training the first responder types. Right, these desk dweebs and dorks in like downtown Ottawa have no idea what actual real work is. I've said this even when I was even by the end of my career, right? The focus was on DEI hires, even then, and so they were shutting down projects, right, or capabilities or enhancements of them for like war fighters, like incredible stuff for like a training on DEI stuff and like this and that and blah blah blah, where you're sitting at a fucking desk again as war fighters, again just being propagandized and indoctrinated, or the attempt to, right? And completely taking away from force capabilities and stuff like that, and rejecting, again, force capabilities that were needed, that other countries are using within the Five Eyes community, and we're not. And again, I still volunteer for that position that I'm talking about, that was again brought up to Ottawa. And anyway, I'm going on all these tangents, but based on the non-answers we heard today from Anthony Fauci, many people were vindicated. Things were done wittingly wrong during the pandemic in Canada as well, similar to the US. It was actually worse in Canada. So apologies must be given to those who were ostracized, blamed, and canceled for simply asking the right questions and having the courage to do so. Accountability must be next for politicians, bureaucrats, and media who dictated and coordinated their flagrant decrees at the expense of the people. Rosemary Barton, David Cochran, why are they still not fired? Like, why they're still blah, 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 like lies, propaganda. And Globe and Mail, Mercedes Stevens, whatever that clown's name is, again, like, she should be fired. People should be suing her. Sue Globe and Mail, sue CBC, all of these things, and get our money back. I'd do a mass tort. I know people that are, by the way. I shouldn't say that, but yeah. And more people should be talking about this. But again, even in cabinet, it's the same people in the House of Commons, especially with like the NDP bloc liberal. They're still working there, right? And so again, they were wrong, and vilified us. Crazy stuff that they did. Overreach, the Declaration of the Emergency Act, again, deemed unconstitutional. And the same assholes are still, again, getting taxpayers' fucking money from people like me. And it's just infuriating. So yeah, firing.
Hey, Grandpa, they say I should turn in my guns to prevent gun violence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that would be like you cutting off your penis to prevent me from raping somebody.
Never thought of it like that.
Yeah.
Canadian intern will remain behind bars after being denied. Canadian intern will remain behind bars after being denied bail. The woman is accused of spying at NATO's strategic headquarters in Mons, Belgium, known as SHAPE. The suspect allegedly worked for an unnamed third country and is a member of a criminal organization. NATO interns are usually screened by member countries. In Canada, CSIS and the RCMP would be involved in the vetting. Dan Stanton, a former CSIS officer, said this could be a counterintelligence operation, and the deliberate disclosure of ethnicity sends a message to the foreign power she's working for.
The way we've uncovered, or we, meaning the government, or various governments, have uncovered perhaps the modus operandi of an intelligence service and has stopped the further development of what could be a mole or a penetration agent on behalf of another country, let's say China.
SHAPE is the command center for NATO, where the alliance plans its military operations and decides where to move troops and weapons. In a statement, Colonel Martin O'Donnell says there's no indication that NATO or SHAPE operational readiness, command and control, or ongoing tasks have been adversely affected. SHAPE, the supreme headquarters of Allied Powers Europe, hires 35 interns a year. Now that the Canadian woman and alleged spy has been denied bail, she'll have the opportunity to appeal. Canadian intern.
Yeah, so thank you, Belgium, for doing Canada's job. Like, it's an absolute disgrace. And I'm going to reiterate that myself and the facilitators that I use that were former special forces operators, homicide detectives, covert law enforcement, etc. There's not, like, when we do the practical piece for these courses, again, it's a week long and it can't be shorter, right? There's a lot of information that these people need, theoretical and practical applications, and they're assessed, right? So throughout the whole week, we have people that are not only observing them, like they're what they're doing, well, I mean, what they're doing, but like that, like as part of the practical assessments, but also like how they respond, how they react, all of these other things. And again, we're doing background checks, all of these things. And then if there are concerns, they're always, again, like each candidate, right? Like we do a deep dive in, right? And we talk amongst each other. Again, it's so even after like people are like doing their own things, like super late at night or whatever, and have a bit of a break, there are still people that were up and we're literally talking through, again, any concerns or things like that. And then we also brief like the directors, the higher ups with global affairs, like because again, we're contracted to work with them as the experts and give assessments on if these people can be trusted or not, and if they could effectively do the job or not, if that makes any sense. And so I don't know who's doing it now, but
Canadian
I know was
compare
not a good job. As good of a job.
Compare ourselves to our
and it wasn't a Canadian company, which is annoying.
Neighbor to our north, Canada. In 2015, they got Justin Trudeau's version of progressive governance, and we got Trump's populism. And even with the Biden interregnum, America has surged past them. Start with income. Americans are dramatically wealthier than Canadians, and the gap, that's only widening.
Disgrace.
Even Canada's own press has to admit that Canada, on average, is poorer than, wait for it, Alabama. Well, they're not tied with Alabama. They're behind Alabama. Same population as Alberta, but lower unemployment, stronger industry, and more production in Alabama. Today, we learned that Mercedes-Benz is investing $4 billion in the state, with more than $7 billion planned across U.S. operations. Wow. So Canada's losing jobs to the deep south of America. The same deep south, by the way, that snooty Canadian elites love to look down on.
Yep.
And Canada's response is apparently to sell out to the communist Chinese. They're opening their automobile market to Chinese EVs at preferential rates. What could go wrong?
What could go wrong?
Canada has gone from declaring China as their biggest security threat.
What could go wrong?
I believe the progress that we have made in the partnership sets us up well for the new world order.
New world order.
Yeah. Why do we get a banker, grifter, elected? I just can't even believe that still. So many great leaders of the past, and then we get these clowns. He's never worked on a farm. He's never worked on like in the mines or fishing. Teacher, doctor, like even that, like military, law enforcement.
Compare ourselves.
Can't even lead his own family. This was funny.
I plead the fifth. I plead the fifth. 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Anytime you say fifth, go ahead and ask me a question. Did you? Fifth. I have a secret document that I think you need to say.
Hello to you all, sir. Good afternoon. I got your sentence reduced to a month.
Yeah, even the because again, Fauci was doing that the whole time, which was absolutely disgusting. Even questions he didn't even have, like he could have answered, and he did look uncomfortable. I'm sure there's going to be people that are going to be doing body like behavioral analysis and all that stuff.
Vaccinated. You are the
This is just a friendly reminder before I get into the video.
vaccinated. You are the problem. It is the unvaccinated who are the problem.
The truth. Maybe they should be shamed by the unvaccinated.
It's time to start blaming the unvaccinated folks, not the regular folks.
We can't trust the unvaccinated.
The unvaccinated, a group that includes children and people acting like children.
When are we going to stop putting up with the idiots in this country and just say it's mandatory to get vaccinated.
Oh, you can't shame them. You can't call them stupid. You can't call them silly. Yes, they are.
Those who are not vaccinated will end up paying the price.
The unvaccinated should be taxed. They should pay more for health care.
We need to start looking at the choice to remain unvaccinated the same as we look at driving while intoxicated.
Really, the only people dying are the unvaccinated. And for those of you spreading misinformation, shame on you.
We've got to shun folks. We've got to shun people into getting.
To shun those that refuse to get vaccinated.
The unvaccinated people have put us in the position that we're in now, and it is not a good place. You got to start telling people, if you don't get vaccinated, you can't come into this office or this place of business. If you don't get vaccinated, you can't come to work.
Oh, screw you.
Vaccinated. You are the problem.
And Canadian politicians and media too. Again, it was the same talking points and stuff like that. Dehumanization, pressure tactics, all of this stuff ruined our lives, like I said, and absolutely disgusting. Disgusting. That was a lot.
Vaccinated. You.
So by now you're probably aware of some.
And then even after the lockdowns were lifted and stuff like that, again, even especially in Ottawa, we have brainwashed morons that have never worked a real job in their lives, again, that are doubling down on all this stuff because, again, they were so loud, blah, 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 for the last fucking 6 years, right? And again, it's like they don't care, right? Because like they're wrong, right? They have been wrong throughout. They just care more about other people not knowing that they were wrong, right? Like they want to keep that friggin' that narrative continuing.
So by now you're probably.
And this is going off of I got another tangent. This is more about again, like DEI stuff that's gotten out of control. And we're even like not little girls, but girls, teenagers are being bullied and harassed by grown ass, disgusting ass clown Karens even at a sporting event, right? And so this is what I mean with the intolerance and the dehumanization and stuff like that. And if people think differently than you ideologically, even though they're correct and they actually know the science more than you idiots, right? These people, again, are so, again, over the top with this, right? And so you're going to see just like a bit of it, but even this Canadian woman that fled Canada and went to the US, she should have been deported by 2024 and overstayed her welcome. And then she attacked a teenage girl because like during the 250th anniversary celebration, she was wearing a fucking t-shirt celebrating it, like, you know what I mean? And so like these people are more unhinged than again, it's just getting worse. I'm all over the place. I'm sorry.
Aware of some of the drama that went down at the Seattle Storm versus Indiana Fever WNBA game in Seattle last night. So this was part of a kind of last minute pro Sophie Cunningham rally that Women Are Real put together and that we attended as well, along with some teen athletes, just to thank Sophie Cunningham for standing up for women and girls and saying she believes that women's sports should be for women. I kind of chaperoned 5 teen girls who were sitting in the front row, were wearing their XXXY gear. The girls say a woman comes over to them and berates them and cusses them out.
Told us that we were effing insane.
And she's like, and she went like this. Insane.
Yeah.
She's like, you better stop this.
And stop pulling
shit.
this. Yeah.
And
for you guys
I
to
hope
come
God
here
can
and
save you.
this.
I will say, Annalie, when I came over, you were in tears.
Yeah, I've never been yelled at like that. I mean, I've had people hate on me on the internet, but like it doesn't really affect me as much because it's just people online. But that just took me by surprise because I thought she was gonna be nice, and then she started like screaming at us and cussing at us. So yeah.
Only to later find out that the woman who did that is the co-owner, a minority owner of the Seattle Storm. Her name is Celeste Keaton.
Yeah, exactly what I expected her to look like. Again, sorry, I was on mute. But, and again, bullying teenagers who are actually scientifically correct, right? And if you're like an owner of a female sports team, right? And you're not, and you again are not getting it, right? That men cannot be women and shouldn't be playing against women in female only sports. They have their own sports, or they can have their own competition category, right? It could be open, right? Male and female, whatever. That's your category, right? And biological males, biological category. Biological females, biological category.
So we found this out. I went and talked to the security and said, hey, are you going to do something about this? Because this is against the WNBA code of conduct. And they said, well, that's the owner of the team, and advised that I send a letter to the Seattle Storm, I guess, after the game. And this was only one of, many things that happened. Some of the girls, players were giving them the thumbs down on the Storm bench just for their T-shirts. There were grown women booing them. There were even 2 women who tried to trip a 15-year-old girl. I mean, Annalie Wilson, who is the one that was reduced to tears over what the co-owner of the Storm did, she lost a state title to a biological boy. This isn't some abstract for her. This is a reality that she has faced. And for the Storm fan base, which says they're all about love and inclusion, and for a co-owner of the team to treat these girls in this way is beyond reprehensible. And finally, the Seattle Storm have responded. They put out a statement today on behalf of the team. Celeste Keaton is the one who needs to apologize, and she needs to apologize to those girls. And, these people, the people who are all about love and inclusion, really need to take a good hard look in the mirror and ask themselves why they are then being so hateful and bigoted toward teenage girls and anyone else who, by the way, holds an opinion that 70 to 80% of Americans hold. Yeah. No player in the WNBA, no matter how woke they want to act, would want to have to play against a male.
Yeah.
So by now you're probably aware of some of
Are blonde women...
This was interesting. As a real blonde, by the way. Anyways, I don't know how true this is. I'll look more into it. But as someone who, I even wrote a comment. So all the blonde jokes, since I was a little girl, I've gotten the friggin' blonde jokes. Objectified, not taken seriously in academia, to the point where even when I was at RMC, I even dyed my hair brown at one point, right? And I've shared videos of that, stuff like that, and to see if that would fucking help. And anyways, I'm like, what am I doing? I'm not a brunette. And it was so hard to maintain because anytime my roots would come out, it was very obvious that I was blonde. And so that, again, and then when it faded too, it would just be like a shitty color. Way too much maintenance.
Blonde women actually dumb? In the 1950s, Jewish directors in Hollywood began casting blonde women as ditzy sex objects in airhead roles. From Marilyn Monroe onward, this continued through films like Legally Blonde or Clueless, and more recently, Barbie, all of which also had Jewish directors and producers.
Interesting.
But in 2016, an economist at Ohio State University researched the question and revealed that blonde women have the highest IQ among all hair colors. In fact, they were also most likely to be labeled geniuses among women. So what's this really about? Well, it's the same tactic used in Hollywood to portray dumb dads in the 1990s and early 2000s sitcoms, which is a deliberate way to deconstruct Western confidence in society and produce self-hatred. You see, white guilt and shame...
You had fat, ugly, dumb husbands with gorgeous, smoking hot wives that did everything, in the house and outside the house, all of that stuff. And even in cartoons, right, with Family Guy and The Simpsons and stuff like that, I'm like, this is definitely brainwashing.
have been going on for far too long in America. And once you see who is behind the deliberate pattern of undermining Western confidence, the only rational response is to expose it and reject it. Are blonde women actually dumb?
And so even with blonde hair and green eyes, that is still the rarest combination in the world. Right. And so people that are saying, again, the white genocide, all that stuff that's going on, we make up less than 10% of the world population. Right. And again, there's multiple countries, right, where you have the majority, again, is up from that country. They have the traits and characteristics of that country. Right. And white people, and I know this sounds I don't care how this sounds, right, but we also need to maintain our places, right, where we are the majority, right, just like any other country, where this is totally accepted. With white people, especially Christians, again, there's so much vilification and demonization and targeted attacks, right, to and I don't know why. And the countries that have the highest percentages of green eyes or light eyes and blonde hair or red hair are places like Ireland, Scotland, Iceland, Sweden, etc. And anyway, I just thought that was interesting.
Are blonde women actually dumb?
Because a lot of these places, again, especially especially over the last decade, there's been so much mass immigration of completely, and I'm not of completely, but in often cases very incompatible cultures and religions and traditions, etc. And it's actually like, again, like even when it comes to like perceptions of women, when it comes to like our laws in these countries, right, where we have like, 18 years old or 21 years old for marriage and for consent, all that stuff, and that women are allowed to divorce their husbands and again be in academia, like all of these things, they're treated as equal. And when you're coming from countries where that's not the case at all, right, and you're bringing that into these countries and you're enforcing like your culture, etc., on people, like the raping and stuff like that that's going on, human trafficking, drug trafficking, we're seeing that so much more in Western countries, and it's by, again, like not by people who were, again, born there. And anyway, I'm going on all these tangents. First cousin marriages, they want to legalize that. Oh my goodness. What a shit show. I was listening to the Book of Enoch on audiobook and just talking about some of the rules and stuff like that that Moses was talking about in the laws. And there's just so many there's so many different major differences between Christianity and even Islam and other and Judaism, etc. That I don't know. I'm just gonna focus on COVID. So Rand Paul plays video of Dr. Fauci's media appearance during the coronavirus pandemic. I'm trying to stick to COVID and I'm going on all these tangents about religion and all this stuff and blah, blah, blah. But anyways, I'm going to get into Dave Smith's podcast. I haven't seen it yet.
Consent to insert into the record documents show that the CIA transferred funds to NIAID through interagency agreement. Hearing no objection, so ordered. We had hoped to hear testimony from Anthony Fauci today. We haven't, but I think it's important that we do hear from him. So we will have a video we'll play in a moment. For years, Anthony Fauci has been the public face of saying this in all likelihood came from nature. He kept saying, it's the marketplace, it's the marketplace, it's the marketplace. He's been saying that on television up until recently. But what we find is that what he was saying in public is different than what he was saying in private. In January, in private, he wrote that looks like the wet market was a super spreader event. It didn't originate there. We know that some of the earliest deaths and sickness came from somewhere else. But then for years and years, we got dishonesty. So let's play the video so we can see a little juxtaposition of the problem we're dealing with.
Fauci's journal entries contradict what he said publicly about the origins of COVID-19. Fauci admitted in January 2020 that the initial outbreak of COVID did not occur at a wet market.
Take a really good look at the animal-human interface and the fact that animals from the wild are being brought into wet markets.
You have animals that come out of the wild that are sold at these open, what they call them, wet markets. Wet markets, where you bring animals in from the wild who have these viruses. The wet markets in Asia, where people bring animals from the forest into market. There are wet markets in Wuhan that are ample opportunity for a virus to jump from an animal. The origin was from a bat to an intermediate host.
And I was talking about that. And even when I went on Viva Frei, finally in 2024, I was mentioning the Wuhan games that happened in October of 2019 involving multiple different militaries and how there were aircrafts that were grounded because of sickness and all this stuff, and people that were reporting that they were sick once they got back to their home countries and all these things, and how they didn't realize it at the time, but they were saying that they likely had COVID, right? Because they had all the symptoms that they had been describing and stuff like that months earlier. And yeah, and I was trying to share this information again with people within access to information requests, like I submitted or had submitted on my behalf from Ethos and Eris. And again, he's on Discord and he has like a whole page, right, with like different subsections that you can like click on any category you want to look at. And there's one for COVID, right? And the access to information requests, like what the reasonings for the declaration of the Emergency Act and how it was complete bullshit and propaganda being utilized, and how they got a radical mainstream media leftist named Justin Ling, right? And they were taking an article that he wrote, and again, from Vice News and CBC and all this stuff, complete leftist media when you look at what he was writing about. And again, the dehumanization of anyone that they consider to be center or right, even libertarian, right? As these extremists, etc., traditional views, if you like worked out, if you had a garden, again, vilifying people, again, living normal fucking lives. Again, I should stop swearing, it's so hard. And yeah, and they cited that, right? And claiming that Diagolon rather was a right-wing extremist group and all. It was just complete bullshit. And yeah, and so like even I'll get into Nick Fuentes, and again, this guy, a lot of what he shares, I don't agree with, but he does ever so often like bring really good points to the table, and I will share those that dialogue that he shares with other people. When I do agree with what he's sharing, and so again, I do still think that he's some kind of a plant, you know, and someone that's being used, a useful, whatever you want to call it. And he had Joe Biden's son on, Hunter Biden. I watched half that podcast because again, it was just ridiculous. Both sides, again, it was just complete nonsense. And yeah, and so it is what it is. But I do agree that people, again, should be having these conversations, right? So even though Hunter Biden, you know what I mean? Like he is a corrupt grifter, liar. Again, Nick Fuentes is as well in a lot of cases. And so even with COVID, he's trying to completely dismiss this, right? Like, oh, it wasn't like this, like a steering committee. It wasn't this and this, like all these like crazy things that people were talking about. Then he's mentioning things that like no one in my network was talking about or saying, right? So he's going like all these crazy conspiracy theories that are actually crazy. And he's saying it was none of that stuff, you know, like, and so they're minimizing just the influence and the impact internationally of COVID, this pandemic, right? And so he's like, this one guy, and they're talking about CIA funding some of this work and stuff like that. Like he's not talking about the biolabs in other countries and top secret clearance fucking spies working within our biolabs in Canada and the US and in Europe, etc. And information going back to China and stuff like that. And again, like not having it where we were like refusing to have people from Wuhan enter our border for a while. They were allowing that to happen, right? Because of money and stuff like that. And then even with the pharmaceuticals and things like that, there was so much money invested by these fucking rich elitist clowns, right? And paying people, again, to, again, continue the narrative, right? Until they couldn't do it anymore. And it's just ridiculous. And so like for Nick Fuentes to say that there wasn't like some kind of like a shadow operation going on in order to like make sure that this was executed, that involved, again, like GFANS, Echo Alliance, World Health Organization, like at the top, Johns Hopkins University, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So he's complicit in this as well. Burla, like this fucking vet clown, you know what I mean? The top health expert, again, not the expert. All the pediatricians and stuff like that in Canada that were bought off, right? Where they were resisting or questioning things at first. And then as soon as they got money from Pfizer or Moderna or these other fucking pseudoscientific corporations, whatever you want to call it, they then were starting to approve and suggest, again, these COVID inoculations for children. Money. And so a lot of people need to be fired and their licenses revoked because what happened to doctors that were pushing back on this during COVID? Their licenses were revoked. Even after the lockdowns and stuff like that, there were still doctors and still are in Canada who are still getting investigated. Still getting investigated for, again, not fully supporting the lockdowns and or speaking out and giving medical and scientific and government data, again, to completely back up their claims. And again, getting dismissed by, again, Ottawa clowns. Desk jobs. Infuriating. Already a tangent, but yeah, so Nick, again, even with that, like trying to like brush this off and stuff like that, like what does he know about 9/11? What does he know about the JFK assassination? What does he know about Northwoods and all of these other fucking events where, again, it did involve, again, these international elite types, right? Like with like the financial organizations that they also use, again, to like cover up like the funding and stuff, like all this stuff that they fucking do. And again, there are times too when the president, again, like he kind of knows that there's people from within that are sabotaging from within and steering them certain ways, like, you know, but some don't, right? And that's why there's assassination attempts, etc. if they don't toe the party line. And all these tangents. But yeah, so for people to fucking say that like this was just Fauci, you know, like he was just because, you know, he wanted the attention and stuff like that. No, it was also like he was involved at the high, like at the kind of the highest level, but the highest, kind of the highest level again of the people that were again like the spokespeople that they wanted to be out in front of this, right? There's people behind the scenes, these Bohemian Grove, Bilderberg Dows types, the Peter Thiels, the Alex Karps, the Larry Finks, the Sam Altmans, the Bill Gateses, the Faucis, the Carneys.
To a human, very likely in a wet market.
And those animals should not have been in the Wuhan market. They knew that those animals should not have been in the market, and they immediately cleaned out the market, put restrictions on the kinds of animals that come into these wet markets. I think they should shut down those things right away. I mean, it boggles my mind.
So repeatedly saying in public something different than what he believed in private. Now, this is interesting because, the first SARS outbreak in 2003 was traced to a wet market, to animals there. But interestingly, they had evidence. They had
Speaking of animals, actually, you know what? Maybe I'll let this roll out. I'm going to play a video clip of an actual a veterinarian who's speaking at some kind of a hearing. And again, you have people that are part of the pharmaceutical industry that are questioning him. And he's pointing out, like, have you ever even treated one animal? Right? Because they're like, oh, we've got all these studies and blah, blah, blah. Like, I'm in the pharmaceutical company for 20 plus years. He's like, I've been a vet for decades, actually treating animals, actually the one on the ground, injecting them and stuff like that, and treating them afterwards for any injuries and things like that. And again, you have never done that, right? So when you've had your desk job and you're pushing pharmaceuticals because you're a pharmaceutical rep, right? But have you ever even, again, stuck a fucking needle in an animal, okay? And treated an actual animal. And these are the experts like Teresa Tam and stuff like that we get. People that have never actually even treated a human being, never even treated a human being. And again, like propped up, again, for the degrees and stuff like that. And then afterwards working on committees and advisory boards and stuff like that. Again, you have zero experience with health or any of that stuff, right? And so how can you possibly be a health expert? So even with Adam Borla, I think he was a vet too. Like never, like you do not treat human beings, right? And so how are you that health expert on that, right? So people that are pushing therapeutics on people and on animals, and it's a huge grift, especially since COVID, and I don't know what other word to possibly use, right? Or even with rabies shots and stuff like that. Again, I was calling it out, right? And then they say, well, we're a private clinic, right? So we can do what we want, right? And I don't like doing this, right? But when you fucking start, right? My mouth, I need to keep it fucking shut. But my dog Smokey, all these fucking vaccines and stuff like that, they were giving my dog and these boosters, and he was losing his hair and stuff like that, and really sick, and they were giving me more stuff, and I'm like, and first of all, this is really expensive, but like I don't care because I love my dog. But like, I got so frustrated, and this vet was morbidly obese, right? She was fucking 2 foot tall, and she was, and I'm not even, I'm exaggerating about the height, but she was over 350 pounds, super unhealthy. And I'm like, and you're talking to me about my animal's health when you don't even got a grip on your own health, right? And so I stopped all of that stuff, and then he started getting slowly better, right? And it just frustrated me so much. We're like, this fucking fat bitch is trying to kill my fucking dog for money, or doesn't care that my dog dies for money. And then again, we're stopping all of that stuff. And that's why after that too, like even with vaccines and rabies shots and stuff like that, they should be good for life. And people in Canada, in major cities and suburbs, again, they're making it where like you have to get your rabies shot every year, right? Every year, and all of these other things too, every single year when they do not need it. And they're introducing these mRNA technologies in their therapeutics. And again, just like with us humans, which what happened, I don't know if I said that properly. Look what happened with us. Same thing happening with animals. And again, what they're trying to do again with like chickens and pigs and cows and stuff like that, it's absolutely ludicrous, and they're getting away with it. Even with the glyphosate and stuff like that, all connected to Monsanto, blah, blah, blah. Like, and they have no idea what they're actually doing to the environment, and they don't care. And people that share the information with them, they actually just censor it and threaten people, go after them, etc. And they do not introduce it again into any evidence. And absolutely criminal. And law enforcement and the two-tier justice system and lawyers and judges, especially in Ottawa, doing nothing about it, because again, they're getting the kickbacks for it and covering for people. Yeah, so I'll roll this out and then I'll find that video.
evidence that the animals had the disease. They also had evidence that the handlers had a disproportionately high number of antibodies to the disease. So there was evidence, and the evidence was presented. So when this came out, the same thing happened again. They did look at the wet market. They looked at the wet market and tested, I think, 80,000 animals and didn't find any animals that had COVID-19. When they did find COVID-19 in trace samples there, they found that the DNA or the RNA was consistent with human spread. This was known not later on, didn't take years to develop, was known in January of 2020. And so Dr. Fauci says privately he knows it didn't come from the wet market, but as you saw, those were over a multi-year period. One of the other discussions I've had with Dr. Fauci over the years about natural immunity. So most infections, you get a degree of immunity, not perfect, some fairly perfect. Smallpox, you just don't get again. George Washington knew this. He had his wife get vaccinated, but he didn't because he'd already had smallpox. But there's one particular story that a man came up to me who'd lost his wife to COVID. He said, we all got it. We all got sick, and my wife ended up getting sick enough to go to the hospital. But we'd recovered 2 weeks. She was still alive. 2 to 3 weeks later, we'd all recovered, and they wouldn't let us be with her. And to this day, it's one of the saddest things. And it just, I think all of us should think about this. They were not allowed to visit their mom. He wasn't allowed to visit his wife in the hospital. But based on this misunderstanding of natural immunity, that for some reason, 2 weeks later, they were a problem. But this was all promulgated by you. We had the workers in the meat factories. They were essential. They had to keep working. Most of them got COVID. They got it in the first couple of weeks. Most of them were younger. The reassurance should have come from public health. The reassurance should have said, congratulations, you've recovered. It also should be acknowledged. What's the number one thing we can do if we get another pandemic? Before we have a vaccine, before we have monoclonal antibodies, it would be to utilize natural immunity.
Yep.
So instead of
and I gave the research papers too on the natural immunity, the not aspirating the needles, the myocarditis, pericarditis markers, especially in young men. You name it, I was giving it. Even with the the partial variant, never isolated, by the way, and Pat King proved that in court. Where there was a higher response in people again with higher levels of estrogen, and so females, right, were more impacted, for example, by J&J and anyway, I'm gonna show the video I was talking about with the vet. I think this is the one. And yeah, Fauci is laughing to the bank and stuff like that, and he still has people again that are pushing back, calling him a hero, all this stuff. And yeah, so, but again, the more exposure this gets, to the world, right? Even though he's going to be, again, on his yacht, on his fucking private island or whatever, again, and so I do agree with that. There's never any accountability. There needs to be more, again, public, I would say, shaming or anything like that. But again, people talking about this, because our own mainstream media and our politicians and the experts they hire and stuff like that are still doubling down. And we're not going to be prepared for another event like this or similar if we don't even know what happened the last time and that people have not been held accountable. And I mean that within the legal systems or fired, things like that. So the USDA approved extremely dangerous self-amplifying RNA shots for dogs and cats, Novavax NXT. And so here,
pets. Is it true that they are putting mRNA in things like the rabies vaccine?
Unfortunately, it's true. Unfortunately, it's true. Last year, the USDA authorized Novavax NXT. It's developed by Merck. It's a RNA particle injection that are self-amplifying RNA particle injection for dogs and cats for rabies, feline leukemia virus, and canine flu. So veterinarians across the country are injecting self-amplifying RNA injections into our pets. Most people don't even know. They'll go to the vet. Nobody tells them it's self-amplifying RNA. This could probably shed onto dog or cat owners through bodily secretions, given how it's self-amplifying. So if you go to the vet and you have to give your dog or cat rabies shot, make sure it's not Novavax NXT.
I gotta go check that, because now if my cat got it, does that mean I'm vaccinated?
We don't know. They never tested it.
Oh my my gosh, this is horrifying. Are pets.
Okay, so
Is
this
it true that they
the one? I'll find it. But this another. Yeah, I really like this comment. Yeah, so I think yesterday again, full moon, all of that stuff. Again, it was just again peanuts for the peasants, a circus for the clowns, and yeah, he's not going to go to jail, just like Hillary Clinton and all these others, Barack Obama, treason, treason. Okay. Oh, the wrong one. I'll let this video play out before I share the other video once I find it on Instagram. Okay, sorry. Pull this up.
Of the advice you were giving to Cuomo and others in New York that led to the deaths of hundreds of thousands of people or tens of thousands of people, you could have been saying, well, maybe the nurses taking care of the elderly should be people who are 2 weeks out from COVID infection. We could have used natural immunity as somewhat of a block of protection. Imperfect, but the only protection we had and the only thing we could have done. Instead, the nursing homes were seated with people who had COVID. So I think the discussion of natural immunity is one where there wasn't sufficient honesty, humility, there wasn't enough presentation to encourage people. That was the only encouraging thing we had for a while is you've got it. You're very, very, if not impossible, close to impossible chance that you'll die if you get it again. Everybody could have been reassured. Nobody was reassured. It's like, well, we don't know. We just don't quite understand natural immunity. My favorite quote from that is from Martin Kulldorff from Harvard. You called him one of the people that you had to take down, the fringe epidemiologist, which I've never ever heard a scientist call another scientist that. But he jokingly said on Twitter, he said, yeah, we knew about natural immunity from 486 BC, from the time of the Athenian plague. We lost all knowledge of it in 2020. The good news is it's slowly coming back. 24 to 2025, we're beginning to understand what natural immunity is again. Not something perfect, but a useful tool that could have been used, but also something that could have helped people by telling the public, my goodness, you're not going to die now. You have a chance. If you've already had it and you're 85 years old and you're at risk for it, and you're wanting to feed your wife, and they're telling you to wear 4 masks and not be around your wife when you've already had it, it made no sense. I visited with a man whose mom was 83 and she was dying from COVID. They go to the hospital in Orange County. They won't admit her to the hospital till she's vaccinated because we have a policy that everybody in the hospital must be vaccinated. She's got COVID and they wanted to vaccinate her again. At one point in time, the CDC understood this. They told people, don't get vaccinated if you've had COVID within 3 months. Why? Because it may give you a heightened immune response when you've already got a heightened immune response. But giving a person very sick, and many of the people who died from COVID died from sort of this storm of response, this immune storm. The answer wouldn't be try to stir up their immune response more by giving them a vaccine. The answer was actually steroids, and good old-fashioned steroids, 37% reduction in death. It turned out to be way more valuable than remdesivir, way more valuable than any of the other treatments, but I don't remember ever hearing a complimentary word on natural immunity or steroids or anything else. And I wish we could have done more today. I would have been willing to accept an apology today. I'm sorry I made mistakes. We all made mistakes. And, at the time, I thought the gain of function research was, the risks of it were worth the benefits. But I've reassessed since 15 million people died. People say, well, gosh, these things never happen. We know it happened in 1977. We know with 100% certainty a virus escaped. In 1977, there's something called the Russian flu. Nobody's exactly positive how it got out. But when they sequenced it, they found out that a flu in 1977 had exactly the same RNA as a 1954 one that they had in the lab and they had created a vaccine for. In fact, turns out anybody born before 1954 was immune, and the only people who got it were people who had been born between 1954 and 1977, but it was identical. The genetic sequence was identical to this vaccine or the virus from 1954, and that doesn't happen because these respiratory viruses are always mutating. To be identical means it had to have leaked from the lab, proof positive that it had. So we know this happens. An author by the name of Young wrote a book and said there was 1,200 cases of significant accidents that have occurred. We knew all of this, and yet it was completely discounted because I think you were worried that if it was seen that you funded dangerous research that started the pandemic, you'd get blamed. And it was a concerted effort. It wasn't just you. Anybody associated with the funding decided we needed to protect ourselves.
Yep. And he's talking about, I'm just going to shut this down here. Ivermectin, hydrochloroquine. Oh, what's up here? And the fact that these were authorized under emergency use, that's only authorized to use that if there's no other treatments available. And there were plenty of treatments available. And ivermectin, hydrochloroquine, sunlight, like different types of supplements, working out, all of these things, and absolutely not even considered, even though people like myself, again, were showing the data, even Joe Rogan with the ivermectin. And again, it wasn't just ivermectin that his doctor, by the way, prescribed to him to treat COVID. Look how vilified he was in the media and stuff like that, and making him look yellow, to make him look sick and stuff like that. It's just ridiculous what these people do. And so I'm going to share Dave Smith. I know this is a long video, but Canadian media and politicians need to look at this. How come this is... No, I want to... Okay, I think I'm... Sorry, putting comments up. Okay, so this is Dave Smith, prosecute Fauci, part of the problem. And again, he's not going to be prosecuted. He deserves jail. He deserves to have, being again in the courts for the rest of his shitty life. And, but again, just like everyone else, Trudeau's still not in jail. Carney's still the Prime Minister of Canada. Doug Ford's still, again, the Premier of Ontario. Again, these are all corrupt, grifter criminals that have fucked over their own citizens for their own, again, ego and power and money. And so nothing's ever done.
What's up? What's up, everybody? Welcome to a brand new episode of Part of the Problem. I am Dave Smith. He is Robbie the Fire Bernstein. How are you feeling today, Rob?
I'm doing well, man. It was an epic run of porches. And once you get in a groove, you don't want to come home because you just it starts off and it's tough. And then you just get used to being on the move and playing people's lawns. So I was having fun.
Well, that's good. You were on quite a run. I got to, by the way, I should mention, I got tomorrow night, I will be in Cincinnati. One night only for the Young Americans for Liberty event. I'll be giving a speech there tomorrow night. And I'm also recording with Matt Kibbe while I'm out there. So there'll be some content for you guys.
And we've got dates this weekend. We're in Florida this weekend.
Yeah.
I think it's go for
Dania Beach Improv, I believe. But yeah, we'll be out there in the Fort Lauderdale area. ComicDaveSmith.com for those tickets.
And I'm sticking around in Florida. I got St. Augustine, Florida on Saturday, and I'm sorry, Cocoa, Florida on Saturday, and then Sunday in St. Augustine, Florida, and then the next week.
I'm going to be going there at some point in the next few months. I won't say when. And yeah, it's one of the it has a star fort in the area that I want to take a look at. The Fountain of Youth. There's other things and old churches, etc., and infrastructure that I want to take a look at. It's funny that he mentions that.
In his Walpole, Massachusetts, somewhere else, I think Boston and Newton and Rhode Island. So come hang out.
Hell yeah. And then, of course, in August, me and Rob will both be at the Skyline Comedy Club in Appleton, Wisconsin, Comedy Mothership in Austin, Texas, then Louisville, Kentucky, Fort Worth, Texas, Dallas, Texas, Salt Lake City. Bunch of stuff coming up. ComicDaveSmith.com, PorchTour.com for all of that. All right, Rob. Well, there's a lot going on. There's some updates with the war, some actually pretty interesting updates. And then we got these Fauci diaries that I really want to talk to you about. Let's start with this because this is something I've been thinking about this morning. And I guess for a bit now, but Mark Levin took to the airwaves over the weekend to give his take
of course he did.
On the legacy, which many people have been thinking about as we come in on 10 years since he was first inaugurated, The legacy of
What other
Donald Trump.
president has the golden coin, his face on the $100 bill, on this many policies and buildings across our nation? No other president has ever had his name so finely displayed.
I'll tell you, Rob, the worst casualty in this war has been high energy Mark Levin. He's been taken down to a Mark Levin that none of us are comfortable with. But yes, here let's hear from Mark Levin himself on the legacy of Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu.
The reason this president will go down in history for 1,000 years.
My precious.
The reason the Prime Minister of Israel will go down in history for 1,000 years is because they saw the danger and they stood up to the danger and they're fighting the danger. And Donald Trump will go down in our history. As one of the greatest presidents ever.
Let's talk about Israel.
Because of what he is doing today, as well as other things that he's done, but certainly because of what he's doing today in dealing with this grave threat in Iran.
All right. Now, Rob, part of the reason why I thought this was interesting is just because, well, on one level, like probably on the most surface level, you just look at that and you go, what?
I got to look more into this because the Epstein list or the Black Book list, right? People, again, are still not only are they not in jail, but even the guy that replaced Pam Bondi, right? The attorney general or whatever, he is in the files and just talking about the most fucking disgusting things to Epstein about 7 and 8 year olds and stuff like that. Oh my God, I just can't even, like over 30 of them and like talking about them being sexy and all this stuff. And again, I have to look at that EFT file to confirm. So I really, but again, I'm already like, yeah, I've seen so much of the files already with shit like that in it. And again, these people are still, again, in like working in government or Hollywood or, politicians are in government, but like multiple levels. And then these huge industries, corporate leadership at the freaking highest levels, the Bohemian Grove types. Oh my God. Crazy stuff. And when I say this stuff, it sounds crazy at the time, and it's like only after information's finally released and revealed, right, where you can't lie anymore, you can't deny it, then people start saying like, oh wow, like imagine this, I can't believe it. And so even Kanye West, like, he says crazy things, but there are things that he is sharing that sound crazy too, and he is 100% correct.
Wow, what world are you fucking living in? You know, and perhaps that is just a comment on the fact that we're living in very different worlds. I mean, that is true. If you are a boomer con TV host, you live in a very different world than we do. But I suppose, Rob, well, look, on one level, right, you just look at it, you go, imagine going on like a college campus today and going, I think Benjamin Netanyahu's legacy is going to be great. He's going to be viewed in history as a great man for 1,000 years. You know, it seems a little removed from reality. Then again, Rob, I mean, monstrous presidents have been viewed as, if you ask historians who the greatest president is, they typically give you our most monstrous presidents. Like they'll say, Truman and FDR and Abraham Lincoln were the greatest presidents. And they're like,
for me, it would be JFK, Teddy Roosevelt, Lincoln, and then even with George Washington, again, even though he screwed like Canadians over, French Canadians over too, for corporate greed. You can understand where he was coming from, right? Like with wanting to stimulate the economy and all of this stuff and like focused on the US. Well, okay, fair, right? All is fair in love and war and all that stuff, right? But yeah, so those would be, mine would be like Teddy Roosevelt, Abraham Lincoln, JFK. What do you guys think?
Whatever grand
That's a good question.
Chessboard geopolitical argument you want to make, you're like, well, you do have to get past a lot, like pick those guys as your, like, just right on the surface, you'd be like, wait, the guy who started world wars and dropped nuclear bombs and started civil wars, killed like hundreds of thousands, millions of people. Those are your best guys. All right. But anyway, I guess one of the things I thought was so interesting about this is just that, like, look, I never really have the confidence, Rob, that left-wingers have a lot where they go, you're on the wrong side of history. Like in my view, it's kind of like, I guess if we win, yeah, if I win, it's going to look real bad if you were a neocon. But if the neocons win, it'll probably look really bad being me. I don't know. But I really do think he's wrong about this. And I think some of the examples of this that are pretty obvious is that I remember, Rob, at the end of George W. Bush's term, people saying, he's very unpopular right now, but historians are going to remember him for winning this huge battle in Afghanistan, being the one who brought democracy to Afghanistan or something.
Oh my God.
I don't know, Rob. Doesn't seem to me like George W. Bush is being remembered as a hero. Doesn't seem to me like Anthony Fauci is being remembered as a hero, which we're going to get into. And the idea that, I don't know, and I'm curious to get your thoughts on this, Rob, but to me, it seems like this idea, you're banking on a lot of things here. Number one, you have to kind of have the people tricked at the time. Like, you got to get those people to believe it at the time, because then 40 years later, they'll swear by that lie of what the myth was, like the Greatest Generation. They'll go to their deaths, be like, yeah, it was great what we did. In other, you also need a control mechanism of propaganda, to maintain that. That's the only way it's ever worked. You don't even have the people fooled at the time that this is a good war, let alone the propaganda machine to keep it going. Am I crazy, Rob? You're a delusional old man to think that, oh yes, Donald Trump, there's any indication that him and Netanyahu will be remembered fondly from history. All right, guys, let's take a moment and thank our sponsor for today's show, which is Ultra. That's going to help you get a good night's sleep. Nothing that's...
He's got a hole in his bottom side right now. He's looking to fill.
Lindsey Graham dick size hole.
Yeah. With all that said, I mean, it's exactly what he does. It's WWF Pro Wrestling. He's trying to sell his fans on that this war is the greatest idea of all time. And listen, don't listen to any of the naysayers. There's still a pathway to victory.
No, we're wasting money. We're wasting resources. We're killing people, all of these things. And we're creating more radicals. And I'm going to go on another rant too. So even with all this funding that we're giving to other countries, like there's another example, I forget where it was. I don't know if it was Nigeria or Nicaragua. Anyway, wherever it was, millions of dollars spent on these friggin', and this is for agriculture, by the way, like programs and stuff like that for these countries. And they buy, I think it was like scooters or dirt bikes or something like that. And again, that had to be kibosh because they didn't consider allocating budgetary resources towards repairs and fuel and things like that. But why are you not buying farm equipment? Why are you not training people to do agriculture and for the soil and seeds and planting crops and water irrigation, all of these things, right? Why the fudge is the money going again on DEI woke ESG stuff, right? All this theoretical stuff. And again, that's incorrect. And I won't even get into that, but we're not putting it in the right places, even when we are helping. And it's actually making things much worse in these regions. And I'm going to share that video that I was talking about earlier with the vet talking at some kind of a hearing. As I said I would.
There are thousands of pets dying out there every day. While we sat at this table, 5-6 pets died in the United States from a rabies vaccine they didn't need. Anybody can walk in here, sit down, and say whatever they want. But I gave you science. I said to the state board, if I had to kill an animal to obey that law, would I have to do it? They said yes. One rabies vaccine is good for life. All this is unnecessary. If that dog had a titer check, it would not need a vaccination. So this is the real problem here. I had put upstairs in the public health department 45 articles that show vaccines are dose dependent. Titers indicate immunity. It's been proven.
Okay, but who's the we? Who's the we?
The researchers. The researchers. These are the researchers. They're the ones who do the research.
Okay, I've spent a career in the pharmaceutical.
And I spent a career being a veterinarian watching animals die from rabies vaccines.
I think I have the floor, but I
think I have the floor. This is what she sounds like to me, right? I have years in the pharmaceutical industry. Oh yeah, okay, so you're the freaking expert on animals dying, clown? Again, never treated an animal. And any stats and stuff like that are manipulated, and this frustrates me as well. And again, all they care about is money. And it's the vets, by the way, that are dealing with the fallout, just like our first responder types, right? All the fucking stuff that we're dealing with, right? We don't have the infrastructure in order to accommodate all like the mass influx of immigration we're accepting, again, for liberal and NDP votes. Ridiculous stuff. And like they're like veterinarians, like they have like there's a higher rate of suicides in the veteran community than like most other occupations, which is horrific. And I'm wondering if it has to do with the fact that like once they become aware that what they're doing, right, is actually killing the animals that we're paying them to actually treat. Like my animals are like my babies to me. Like I'm not gonna friggin' lie. I know they're not kids, so relax. But I love my animals, and I want to protect them. And so like if they have any injuries that need to be fixed by a vet, right? Like if there's like a leg injury, or God forbid they get hit by a vehicle, or any of these things, yeah, vets are absolutely needed. So it's a needed job, right? Just like in like the healthcare system. But people have exploited it, and these are people that have no morals, unethical, or they're unaware, because they're not being educated intentionally, and this is information that needs to get out, right? And so maybe this is like the Christian side of me speaking, you know what I mean, and why I'm doing all these videos, right? Because like Jesus teaches, right, to speak the truth, share the truth, be courageous in that, right? Call out the people that are lying to people, that are not allowing them, again, that are exploiting people, the vulnerable, the widows, the disabled, blah blah blah. And doing so, like it's going around, again, it's speaking the truth, it's informing people that way. That's what Jesus did, right? He wasn't raping and pillaging and burning down villages and things like that. He was speaking to people, educating people from a place of non-judgment. And again, conversations he would have were very long, and my videos are very long. I don't know, I'll let him keep talking though.
Don't agree with what you're saying. Do you know of any studies that the vaccine can sometimes create other health concerns for animals? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. You get tumors at the injection sites, you get autoimmune diseases that start later in life, but you get the immediate reactions. Some dogs die immediately of anaphylaxis. Others get just serum sickness and they vomit, maybe hide under the bed for a day or two. But if I lower my dose, right, to protect the animal, then I'm in trouble. So I have to do what the manufacturer says. And like the State Board of Connecticut said, if I have to kill my pet, I have to kill my pet. It's the law. Well, guess what? I have a Hippocratic oath that is greater than any law that's passed in the state of Connecticut that would make me kill my patient. I won't do it.
Yeah, and more vets are speaking up at these hearings. Yeah, because we're talking about COVID, so I thought might as well just introduce that in as well.
And 1,000 years from now, people are going to be celebrating how great what Donald Trump did, and the adversarial climate he had to overcome of people who didn't see the risk of Iran and the need to stop them now. So, he's just doing what he's doing. He's going with the biggest possible lie to sucker people into his.
And Trump knew as well, again, I'm all over the place, but like even April of 2020, he was yelling at staff, again, that Fauci brought in to talk to him and stuff like that, saying that they were lying to people, all this stuff. And again, it's on the record. And then Fauci, again, after this fucking clown like leaves his office, like she's talking about how she just got grilled and reamed out by Trump, and Fauci's like basically like, don't worry about it, right? And so again, Trump cowered under pressure by billionaire types, right, that had a lot to lose by destroying our lives, the peasant class. This is a class war, and as people that don't consider us to be human beings, I'm going to reiterate that, like at the top levels, right? And so Trump is, again, like he cowers down to that for whatever reason. And so to me, he's a coward, and it is what it is. And there's things, again, like even with other things like regarding the moon landings and stuff like that. And I don't care what people say, that's going to come out in the next few years too, right? Because there's just no way around it. And and he's not exposing the truth on a lot of things. And so, like, again, he's covering for his rich elite billionaire class instead of the people. And that is what he's going to be known for.
World vision, and that
even with the wars, right? And it's not going to stop in the Middle East.
That there will be a victory, and a victory that is so celebrated that 1,000 years from now, people are going to look back at Trump as the savior of our universe.
Yeah. I will say though, Rob,
Oof.
and I hesitate to like jump to conclusions, but I don't think there's nothing to that. Even though we're kind of like joking around when we say this, there's something to the fact that he's like more low energy than ever. There's something there. I've noticed this across the board with the war hawks and the cheerleaders of this war. Just like watch their energy. They're all zapped of it. It's horrible. You almost look at them and feel bad in a way. Like it does feel like you just drew the toughest hand in a game of charades or something like that. Like you're like, oh, you got to go out and still defend this shit. Okay, yeah, dude, Donald Trump's going to be remembered so well in history. And was it Donald Trump? Where is he? 15 points underwater from where he was a year and a half ago, or before he launched the 12-day war. I don't see it. Netanyahu, the guy who's under ICC, indictment. There's a criminal warrant out for his arrest.
Oh yeah, and they just fired that guy or something.
And then, of course, Rob, in the backdrop of this, we have what? That over this weekend, evidently, at least according to the newspaper of record and whatever the official regime stenographers are, Donald Trump wanted to escalate and has been warned that we're running out of missiles. Now, this is a major problem, that our stockpiles have been depleted. Now, this is something that has been, it does almost feel, there's been a few reports about this, but it almost feels like this is like a new topic being introduced to the corporate media. This has been a real concern for quite a long time. And look, Rob, this was, I know they had what's his name? I'm sorry, I'm blanking on his name. Who's the former national security advisor who's over at the, where is he, at the UN now? Waltz. Well, they had him on the Sunday shows saying that, oh, don't worry about this. There's no problem. If there is a problem, it's Joe Biden's fault over Ukraine. And you're like, hey, that's really contradictory. Which one of those two is it? Like, is it we're running out of missiles, but it's Joe Biden's fault, or we're not running out of missiles? Because even if you're going to blame the last guy for that, that's information we really need to have cleared up right now, which one of those two it is. But they're out saying this is not true. The New York Times, they're out there saying people should be indicted, whoever leaked this, which, by the way, Rob, that is quite a leak. This isn't just like your run-of-the-mill leak, because if true, I mean, hey, that is giving up very important information to the enemy and the whole world. That being said, that wouldn't be American citizens' biggest concern. Our biggest concern would be the fact that we're actually, if this is true. But anyway, the thing that gives it a lot of legs, Rob, is that 3 nights in a row now there have been no attacks. And so it does seem to back up that there was a reason why Donald Trump stopped here. By the way, double cross your fingers and toes, but this could be really good news if this is the reality on the ground that gets Donald Trump to just walk away. We'll see.
Well, firstly, I had been saying I've said this in the past, that if there was a Donald Trump on their side, that every time Donald Trump was saying they have no Navy left, we've taken out 90% of their missile capability, someone over there would be going, they used up other Patriot missiles, we took out other bases. They have a storyline too. And I think Donald Trump, you read all of his threats, and they seem to live in a bubble that Iran can't escalate back. He seems to constantly be in some illusion of, oh, we're going to go hit all their power plants. And Iran goes, go ahead. We're going to start taking out power plants in the neighboring countries. But he seems to constantly be in like a bubble reality where he feels like we can escalate. We do have escalation dominance, and they won't be able to match us. And I think Donald Trump just throws these threats out there with none of the actual reality in mind. And in this case, someone had to actually sit down and go, hey, this is going to be a big mistake. We don't actually have the interceptors if we're going on the offensive. And I think on the Iranian side, they're not looking to escalate because they don't want to give an excuse for Israel or America to basically nuke them. They don't want to do anything so tragic that the world would be on the side of, hey, this regime has to go. And I think they're just kind of comfortable sitting in this mess, feeling like they won, and that at some point Donald Trump is going to have to actually give them a real version of the MOU, admit defeat, and walk away. And so they're happy to kind of just sit in the current status quo. And Donald Trump is really just working with his bomb and hope strategy of let's keep the current conditions and let's hope that some sort of a pathway opens up. But now that the Red Sea is shut down, Saudi Arabia's got to be pissed off as all hell as some critical infrastructure is now being targeted and hit by the Houthis. it seems like there's just more of a shot clock running out on America of how much we're going to be able to, how much our voting public is going to be willing to tolerate without turning on Trump. So it just kind of feels to me like the Iranians just have this chess game pretty figured out, and Donald Trump is still fumbling along.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. That's like spot on. And even down to your point with the nuclear threat and Donald Trump being the guy sitting there does give it a little bit of a credibility from the Iranian perspective that, like, look, I mean, he is the craziest motherfucker in the world and he does have his finger on the button. So like, gee, but you're essentially, if you're trying to, which is a useful thing to do in war, even though it literally gets every low IQ moron to, lose their minds if you ever do it. But like, put yourself in the perspective of the other guys. Imagine right now, you're an Iranian. Imagine your survival and your family's survival depends on Iran coming out on top of this, and you're operating from their point of view. I think exactly what you said is how you have to approach it. You'd go, look, we're winning, but there's this big, ace in the hole. So we don't want to do anything crazy. You just want to win. Play conservatively at this point. But also, if you were being smart from their perspective, but you don't give up straight, you don't give up anything. You don't, because you're winning. And why would you? So yeah, I think that's essentially right. And look, man, if this is the case, I mean, in some ways, it's another level that we're going to get a reality check on exactly how much of a paper tiger this whole U.S. empire is, and exactly how much of a big Ponzi scheme is this whole thing, where you've got, I mean, Rob, if you look into it, and there's some people who have done good detailed analysis on this, but there's been some reports even in the New York Times and in the Wall Street Journal where they'd even, when you just go through it, it's like, dude, we dropped like more THAAD missiles than have ever been dropped in humans. Something like some crazy number, like a huge percentage of the world's stock of THAAD missiles we dropped in the first month of this war. And then you'd like look at the numbers and it'd be like, it was like $5 billion worth of THAAD missiles alone. Like the numbers are getting really crazy. And you got this War Department that's now coming out and they're asking, first they said they needed $200 billion for this war. Now Pete Hegseth is coming out, Robin, saying the biggest threat to national security is that we don't give you guys $1.5 trillion. And it's like, yo, dude, like the money you're talking about here, where we've probably, America has, since the collapse of the Soviet Union, maybe put $20 trillion into militarism. You're now talking about you need another 1.5 trillion just to get you through the next year. And this is the biggest national security. Like, at what point does the taxpayer get to kick the tires on this thing?
Okay, so he's talking about the THAAD missiles. No. Terminal High Altitude Area Defense THAAD system is owned and manufactured by Lockheed Martin. Again, I've talked about them for years as well. Raytheon, Lockheed Martin, General Dynamics. Other ones. So during the conflict with Iran, Lockheed Martin supplied the interceptors and system used by the United States, Israel, and United Arab Emirates to intercept Iranian ballistic missiles. I've even gone on LinkedIn and criticized or called out people that were part of Raytheon with their announcements and stuff like that on LinkedIn, and they didn't like that. It's funny.
Robin, go. And what do we have for all that? You're telling me we've spent this many trillions of dollars. Do you understand the level of wealth that we've robbed from the American people, extracted from the economy, and given to cronies at weapons companies to the tune of trillions and tens of trillions?
Lockheed Martin, like over 74% is owned by institutional investment firms, because I talk about those, and this is where a lot of these like shadow operations are being funded. Okay, so the three largest shareholders are State Street Corporation. Talked about that before. The Vanguard. That's what I was thinking about. I'm like, I've talked about BlackRock, Vanguard. The second largest, holding roughly 9.2%. Then you've got BlackRock, the third largest, with about 7.5% ownership, and real company insiders, senior executives, and board members. So you've got the CEO James D. Taiclet, Taiclet. Retail investors, individual investors holding shares directly account for approximately 25% of the ownership. And you've got Northrop Grumman in there as well. And even Marco Mendicino, his wife, allegedly had shares and stocks in these companies. And so do a lot of people within the House of Commons and stuff like that. And so this is where this stuff needs to be shut down, right? And so I've said before that even myself, like even knowing before wars start, right? Like I could put shares and stocks in these companies, and I never would, even Palantir and stuff like that before they got big. Anthropic, I was talking about that, and I'm like, I would never actually invest in these companies because this is investing in my demise, right? And so, and I'd be supporting it essentially again, like the wars that are started because, like again, these people again that run these companies and the steering committees, they don't care about societal impacts. They care about the shareholders, and the shareholders are billionaires. And even the money again that we're investing in these wars, et cetera, it's going to these companies and not where it's needed to go.
Millions of dollars. And you're telling me we run out of missiles in a war with a third-rate power after a few months? I mean, I'm sorry, what the fuck are we talking about here, Rob?
Yeah, well, this came up during the when we were funding Ukraine against Russia. I know I think I heard Ron Johnson say this on the Senate floor, that they're able to produce just the basic stockpiles of ammunition at like it's like a 7-to-1 cost ratio. And I mean, and this is Trump's fault of piss poor planning gets piss poor results. At the outset of the war, people were talking about the cost of our interceptors versus the cost of their cheap drones. And I was talking with Kyle Anslow on my podcast, Run Your Mouth, at the start of the war, and he was basically saying what you're saying, is that the problem is that our entire military industrial complex is basically just a money laundering scheme. And so they are not.
And so even Mark Carney, okay, so he obviously has shares and stocks in Lockheed Martin. Okay, so Carney and other people, and he's our prime minister banker, right? And so I'm going to reiterate, this guy needs to resign. Yeah, so according to his conflict of interest disclosure files released in July 2025, Carney owns stocks in Lockheed Martin Corp. Among a portfolio of over 560 companies. And again, and more so. Of course, he's going to want us to go to war forever. And of course, he's going to want money to go to Ukraine and all these other countries. It's not going to them. It's going to Larry Fink. It's going to these guys. Carney.
Actually prepared for these fights because they got these super targeted, very expensive pieces of equipment that are kind of outdated, and they are spectacular and they are precise. But if you're up against heavy volume, super cheap, it's not a winning strategy.
Yeah. No, that's right. You know, I think about this quite a lot. But there is also something interesting about how, like,
Halliburton,
you know, they say the Pentagon's always fighting the last war. And there's no question there's truth to that. I mean, if you look at where so much of like so much of the military buildup has gone, it was almost like we're planning for another World War II, or we're planning for another conventional war. But even as you look around, you're like, dude, I mean, all the superpowers got H-bombs at this point. Like, we're not doing another conventional World War II war. So why are we planning for that? Like, our boys aren't going to be in foxholes shooting at other, boys in foxholes. Is it right? We're not going to fight World War I if we do have another world war. It'll be something, but it won't be that. And, you know, when you think about the fact is, and this really is the fact, that if there's a reason, if you had to, obviously these are layered questions, but if you were to say, why is America the superpower in the world right now? And you had to give the shortest possible answer to that, it's like, well, because we won the 2 world wars in the 20th century, or something like, we won the 2 world wars and then the Soviets collapsed, or something like that. So we're the superpower left. And the reason we won the 2 world wars is because we had this giant industrial base. We were the most productive nation in the history of the world. We made so much stuff that it made us the richest country in the world. And then when our government decided to take us to the war, they converted that productive capacity toward war making. Yeah. And so we just outproduced everyone. So we won the big wars. And then through a bunch of government policy, we deindustrialized the whole country. And now we don't have a productive capacity. And there is just something interesting about that, like, Rob, where it's like, look, obviously we're not fighting the last war anyway, but even if
so even with Raytheon, which is now RTX, like again, even with Mark Carney, he has investments in that as well, and so do his friends. And I do think that is too much of a conflict of interest, and that's why I've never had shares and stocks in these companies, because again, working in the government or with the government, even for contracts, with top secret security clearance, all of that stuff. Like I do not think I don't think I should be trusted. I would be able to be trusted with making recommendations or giving even briefs and assessments and reports and things like that on wars if I'm directly benefiting from, again, supporting there to be wars or other things, right? So I hope that makes sense. And so there should be more people like myself, again, that know all of this shit and know that we can make a lot of money on this stuff and not do it, right? And the thing is, because again, it's too much of a conflict of interest. There's too much of a bias, and people, again, are greedy, right? And that's another big way, again, of removing that, again, from the equation. And it's because they care about the people that have shares in the stocks in these companies. They do not care about the countries that they're operating in. I'm going to reiterate that 1,000,000 times. And say that more people, again, that do not have any investments or any conflicts, again, that are voting on bills and censorship, this and that, and it like cannot, right? When you're making money off of it, or your family's making money off of it, it's I like, how is that not being how is that not treason?
We were to fight the last war, like we don't have that anymore. You know, like we don't have the thing that made us the superpower, both economically and then militarily. We gave up on that. And now we're an economic superpower because we trade more pieces of paper electronically than anybody else does or whatever, you know? And then you're like, oh, all right. Also, we spend more of that paper money on our military. Like, and that's not nothing, because you can buy some cool missiles and stuff.
And Connie too. And so for military and even aerospace defense and stuff like that, again, huge investments, right? And so this is another thing that's going to be pushed. And all of this money that's being wasted on grifters, again, that are getting a lot of money out of this, it's not good for Canadians, right? This is money that should be diverted elsewhere and so many other places within Canada. And it's alarming, right? So even with China and like trying to do trade deals, even for food and stuff like that, Canada is like the second largest country in the world, all right? And we have crippled Canada, crippled it, especially in the last 10 years. And again, so yeah, like focusing on the military and increasing our force capabilities, all that stuff, and turn us into war fighters again, fine. Right, but we also have to, again, like put money in, again, these other places as well. And I'm a broken record.
But all of this stuff is getting put to the test right now. And I mean, we're failing it in real time. You're watching. We're just failing it at every turn. And I don't know what to say, Rob. Donald Trump lost the war. Then he pivoted to an economic blockade and lost that war. Now he's pivoted back to this, and he's losing this one. So what's the next pivot here? I have a feeling it's just walk away. I'm hoping. All right, guys, let's take a moment and thank our sponsor for today's show, which is Hexclad. I've been telling you about this company for a while now. Carve and serve without constant. All right, let's get back into the show.
Well, walking away probably made more strategic sense than the MOU, but
Yeah.
we're circling back to where we were this entire time, which is essentially you gotta break up with Israel, and Iran's going to keep the straits. All the neighbors are going to have to get along with Iran. We're going to have to kind of admit that Iran's not a mortal enemy, and the big loser in that equation is Israel.
Yeah. Well, yeah. One would think. All right, you want to just let's get into some of the Fauci stuff, because this is something. Prosecute Fauci. There you go. It was something, man. Reading through, I will say there's something.
Okay, so I will say that I don't agree with like, oh, Iran has like no issues. No, they've been occupied now for decades under extreme radical leadership, right? And so I do not support a lot of what's going on there either. And but again, we're creating more radicals, and we're creating more danger within our own countries, right? Because these radicals have also infiltrated our own countries, and again, en masse, especially since 2020, and not getting deported and all those things, and it's gonna get worse.
About COVID and that time period. And, you know, I remember when I read Tom Wood's fantastic book, Diary of a Psychosis, really great book. But I remember it was
I just watched a video of embedded journalists that are in Afghanistan post 2021, and they're interviewing families, and this man is selling his 5-year-old daughter to a man in his 50s. And second one, by the way, that this guy bought, and I think it was for the equivalent of $2,000 US. Disgusting. And again, she's like whimpering and traumatized and devastated, fully covered up, right? Walking with this grown ass fucking grandpa. And again, you know what's gonna happen, right? And the father's like, "Oh, protect my girl." And he has other daughters, even 2 years old, and he's saying like, "Oh, because of like the poverty and stuff like that, they can't afford rice and blah blah blah." That again, he's gonna have to sell more of his daughters, and this is happening all over the fucking Middle East and other areas as well, in Africa, etc. Little girls being sold because of the conditions that they're in, and we have people fleeing those areas instead of actually there again building, right? Doing the agriculture, the farming, all that stuff. Again, stop with the drugs and the poppy fields and stuff like that, right? Because you're getting a lot of money for that. You got to go back to what you were doing before that. We have completely destabilized areas, right? The poppy wars, like there's so many different areas throughout the world. The Iran-Contra scandals and stuff like that. Like these were drug trafficking operations and stuff like that. Anyway, I'm going on all over the place here, but that's what just happens when you have too much information. Yeah, we need to start again allowing people to start building and doing the waste management piece within their own countries, including Pakistan and India and stuff like that. So the people coming here to work in data centers or Tim Hortons and things like that, like I don't care how this sounds anymore, or fake certifications in so many different jobs within Canada, fake certifications and stuff like that, and causing more harm than good. Why don't you go back respectfully, and especially if you don't like it here and you're slamming Canadians and you hate the country and all that stuff, go back to your country and start doing work there that needs to be done, because no one is leaving this planet. No one's leaving this contained cosmos or the firmament, if you want to talk about the Christian Bible, the Rakia, whatever. And so we need to unfuck this mess that we're creating here, right? Because there's nowhere else to go. The wildfires, the this, the that, like the spraying chemicals, all of this shit, what we're doing to the water supplies, destabilizing societies, like we're gonna eventually have to unfuck that, and all the money going towards like NASA and RASA and ISS and stuff like that needs to go towards these programs I'm talking about, and expanding outward, especially in Canada, right, where 98% of the population or the country rather is uninhabited, right, for so many different reasons. But we can rebuild these areas, the ecosystems and stuff like that, and make it where there's more sustainable ways of assisting ourselves without having to rely on countries, especially countries like China at this point. Are you kidding me? They are one of the biggest threats. There's a lot of threats now, like Carney being one of them, but like is China. So I wouldn't trust anything coming out of that fucking country right now. I know how that sounds, and I don't mean it to, because I'm not actually fucking not racist at all, but I'm talking again about even with them, like the military, pharmaceutical, industrial, tech complex, especially the tech complex.
It was like a cathartic experience, but it was emotional. Like
they're
like,
spying on us.
It was just such a period. You know, I mean, I think COVID is one of these things that like it affected everybody's life. For me and you, it also like affected our career a lot, and in many ways, our show kind of blew up in those years. And, you know, I kind of made a name for myself off being one of the guys who was opposed to the COVID stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been around a little bit before then, but those were big years.
Speaking about China too, Olivia Chow, whether she realizes it or not, she is a plant, and she is sabotaging Toronto, Ontario. So she's facilitating that grift, and she's an absolute lunatic. Okay, and again, only I think because Jack Layton, again, that I liked as well, like that was her husband, and for him, rest in peace. But she's made a mess, an absolute mess, and she's clearly, whatever you want to call it, she's corrupted, right? So like even whether she realizes it or not, her data, her phone conversations, her laptop information, all of this stuff it's being monitored, it's being surveyed. And there's people that are influencing her policies and all these things that she's pushing, right? That's completely like anti-societal, and she's again getting paid to do it by our Canadian taxpayer dollars.
For sure. I still, everywhere I go, people come up to me and talk about the Cuomo debate. I'll never not get just regular working class dudes coming up to me going,
Teresa Tam too.
Are kicking Cuomo's ass. And there's well, look, it was a crazy time. And even for me, I still, when I like, as I'm reading some of these Fauci emails, you're like, was it all a dream? Did this really happen? And I'll tell you, there was something where I've seen on social media a bunch of people like posting stuff about, and it's like, it's almost like getting the boys back together. It's all the people who were against the COVID tyranny. Like, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember all these guys. And there is a bond, I think, that all of the people who were really, really outspoken critics of the insanity of the insane response to COVID, there's like a camaraderie that we all have with each other because the world really went crazy. And it was, it was a time where it felt like it really cost you something to stand up and be against it and tell the truth. And not just like cost you something, like, I'm not trying to exaggerate. Like, it wasn't like, oh, you were going to go to jail for this, but I never felt like that, but it did feel like you might be silenced permanently in the public conversation for this. And it did feel like, I think for a lot of people, like you might really lose friends over this. Like people, and it's just a crazy time. And look, I don't know how else to say this, but we were so goddamn right, Rob. We were so right. And they were all so wrong. It is, I don't know. And I know that this is one of the things that I appreciate where people come up to me about the Cuomo debate all the time. It's not just about the Cuomo debate. It was much bigger than that debate. It was much bigger than me. It's that during these COVID years, there was, Rob, the attempt to gaslight you, but from all the halls of power. And while you sit there and go like, no, this clearly makes no sense. This is wrong. And they tried to and then to like find other like-minded people and have their whole narrative fall apart. There's something just very cathartic about that where you're like, thank you. I'm not fucking crazy. You people, not only are you people, were you guys always out of your fucking mind? These absolute, just sociopathic liars. And we'll go through some of this in a little bit. But like, look at the actual guy who you were defending. He's a little fucking weasel, a little weaselly liar who was like overwhelmed and thrilled with the moment that he was in. It's unbelievable. The more you learn about these people, the more information as time comes out. And then you try to put yourself back in the space of what they were telling you at the time, that he was this hero. He was truth, science, and above, reproach. I don't know. What do you can take this anywhere you want to, Rob, but
all right. I want to give you the highlights of what I've seen so far that are in the diaries. I'm going to have to actually go and read all of these because I will for sure turn it into some comedic bits.
It's really made for a Rob Bernstein piece on all of this.
Yes, this is, I will be delving into this, but the single most damning piece that's in there, and we'll get into all of them, but the single most damning was that he acknowledged, and I don't know why he put this in writing, but when he was out there 3 weeks after he wrote this in the diary, that the death rate was upwards of 3%. He acknowledges in his private diaries that this is basically a bad flu at like 0.002%. And so if you just want one little piece of evidence of this entire thing being a fabricated mess by the works of Fauci, it's right there in his diaries that the death rate that scared the shit out of all of us was completely overstated, and he knew it at the time.
Which is so huge, man. And I'm sorry, don't lose your place on that. But this was the whole debate at the time, because at the time, this was the whole numbers. It's like, okay, well, if it's 0.03, then who really cares? It's a bad flu and we go on with life as normal. But if it's 3.0, then we're looking at the Black Plague and like fucking hundreds of thousands of Americans are going to be dead on the street. And so we have to. And so, dude, conflating that.
Even with the flu saying it was a bad flu, we even gave the stats like during the COVID period too. We were sharing that like the flu, like now for some reason people are not dying of the flu, but it seems like it's almost exactly the people that were claiming are dying of COVID, to die of COVID, that replaced that number. So now there's no flus reported, but now again, like those reports were again the COVID numbers, and then the flu being like 0% stuff like that, or significantly crazy, and sharing that information to the chief of defense staff, to the special forces. Like high-ranking people and stuff like that. It's so many tip lines, you friggin' name it. I'm gonna say it for fucking ever. And I was getting shut down. right? Like even people that were former commanders of JTF2 that work now with int and cyber warfare industries and stuff like that that are working out of Tel Aviv, Toronto, and Jersey City and stuff like that. And again, they're still doubling down, lying to us, and people again hold them again on a pedestal. And again, even when I was trying to share this information before going public, it was getting shut down. And even the Can4gen that was created by Wayne Eyre, signed by him, I even showed the references that he shares to justify all those fucking measures to kick people out and stuff like that. Was there was no medical or scientific data, right? And so even the medical scientific government data I was giving him to debunk like what they were sharing and saying, like even the lab leak and stuff like that, the Wuhan games, that was all to address the VAERS that were released as early as February of 2021, months before this guy fucking pushed those orders on people, because that was again in the winter still, and the Can4gens again were signed and published. I think it was like early fall of the same year. And wild.
It's such a huge, you know what I mean? Like it's you kind of can't overstate like what a big deal that is. He knew it, and they were smearing us. Dude, I remember sharing studies at the time that were like, hey, indicating maybe it's lower than that. And people would be furious at you over it. And this motherfucker knew the whole time.
Yeah. And then next is you get just the insight into the institutional problems. So for one, apparently he ended up in his position because Donald Trump liked the way he looked on television. And everyone kind of thought he was a good TV character. And so that's how he became the Lord of Science, was not because he was actually doing the research, but because he was good on television. Next you have, and this gives away the entire thing, and people don't understand just how dirty this is. He's getting awards from people that have gotten big grants from the NIH. And isn't that nice that you can get a huge sum of money from the NIH and then turn around and go, we're going to give an award to the guy who gave us a ton of money. But it's not just the awards. That's why all of the institutions were in lockstep with what was coming down. It's socialism, that there's so much federal money going into the system. None of the big institutions or doctors or anything wanted to criticize the system because that's where the actual money's flowing from. And then the last piece of just institutional rot that's very apparent is when they first get together with the scientists and Fauci knows that this leaked from a lab, and he's got the committee and he's like, all right, well, we're going to have to make this look like it's like it was out of the wet market. And then they, I think 2 people left that committee because they were kind of the dissenters. The same thing happened with the CDC. They got rid of the guy who, I think it was over the same lab leak thing that they basically got rid of him. Also, every time they were proving the vaccines, when there were dissenters, those guys magically decided to resign from their posts. But that's the rot, is that you get these people at the top of these institutions that are not going, hey, go perform science and give me an answer. They're going, this is the conclusion I'm looking for. I need it on government paperwork so I can go people, hey, this is the scientific process of government paperwork. You got to trust the government paperwork.
No, you're exactly right. That's it. And so, well, look, dude, I mean, this is the shit that Rothbard taught me about how you got to analyze this shit. It's like in the same way that, like, when it comes to economics, I always say there's Austrian economics and then there's junk economics. It's like, because there's a correct way to view things here and an incorrect way to view things. And so like, for example, just off topic on the economic stuff, right? Like, this was the basic Misesian idea of what praxeology is, right? That praxeology is the study of human action. And when humans are acting, you think about that in a different way, right? So, like, for example, if you saw, I think Bob Murphy might have used this example. If you threw a rock up in the air and it came down and you caught it in your hand, right? Or then you saw, let's say you saw a plane take off and then you saw a plane land. Like, you were just at the airport, you saw it take off and land. Now, if we were scientifically analyzing what just happened with that plane, and I said to you, I came to you with a hypothesis, which is that the pilot didn't like the looks of it. He changed his mind and he decided to land. That's like a reasonable hypothesis in that case, right? Like that maybe he didn't like the looks of the weather and came, but we just saw a plane take off and come back down. Now, but if I was analyzing the rock and I said to you, looks like the rock didn't like the way things were going up and he decided to come back down. Okay, like, that would be really goofy in the rock example, but it would be totally scientific in the plane example. And in the same way that, like, vice versa, if I were to try to describe the plane as if it was a rock, as if gravity just brought it back down, you'd be like, no, you don't understand. That's human action. There's a human being acting here. And so we analyze that in a different way than we would So in other words, any type of economics that's giving you like a formula, like that's trying to be physics, you're not doing it right, dude. This has nothing to do with science anymore. This is anti-scientific. It's as anti-scientific as if I said the rock decided it didn't want to go up anymore and decided it wanted to come down. We don't think of rocks as making decisions, and we don't think of humans as not making decisions. Neither one works. In the same way, sorry, that's just a little off to the side, but for those who it connects with, I think it makes sense. In the same way, Murray Rothbard used to put it like this. I believe what he called it, what you're talking about right now, was economic incentive history, or like that he was saying that should be a whole different branch of history. And Murray Rothbard basically argued that we have good military history where they'll be like, this battle happened, then this battle happened, then this battle happened. But if you look at real like historians and the work they do on policy, it's almost always like the gaps are filled with just narrative nonsense. Like, dude, and I can't tell you how many times this happens. This was one of the great insights as a historian that Murray Rothbard had. But so I get this all the time when I talk to liberals or left-wingers. And in fact, I think Nick Mullen once came at libertarians with this like dismissal, which is a pretty popular one you hear on the left. They'll say something like, yeah, Rob, we tried it that way and that didn't work. And that's why we have what we have now. You know, and to some degree, there's like a superficial level of plausibility with this because, yeah, we used to be a much more free market economy and now we're a much more centrally planned economy. And so, yeah, we used to do it like that and then found out it doesn't work. And now we do it like this. But then Rothbard would point out, hey, is that really how the mechanisms of government work? Is that just right now, when you look at the mechanisms of government, is that how it works? The people, we all found out and then legislation gets passed? Like the example Rothbard would use, he goes, let's say Congress passes a tariff on steel, okay? Or let's say Trump passes it. Well, you know, it doesn't have to be Congress. The government, maybe it does by executive order, whatever. There's a tariff on steel. And you were to go, hey, here's my hypothesis on how this happened. The people woke up and they realized that free trade in steel just didn't work. There were these major problems in the buying and selling of steel. This didn't work. And the people realized that a preferable economic system was that Washington, D.C. tax foreign production or foreign imports of steel production. Or is it more likely that special interests from the steel industry lobbied for said policy? Which one's more likely? Every last one of us knows that the second is the actual mechanisms of government. And yet, real deal historians and regular people will tell you history as if it all happened the other way. They will fill. So one of the ways Rothbard does history, it's just really fascinating. So he says, and this is the way Rothbard described it, even back then, and I believe he was writing this in the 70s. So if you could try to picture how brilliant and how much this applies to today. But he goes, look, this is why the term conspiracy theory was developed and used to slander anybody who does real history. Now, he made the point, Rothbard goes, there are kooks out there who do bad conspiracy, but real history is almost always about economic incentives and thus a conspiracy of sorts. And so when you read Rothbard, well, Rob, you know, in 1850, they put in that big railroad. What was it? Around 1850. So the one that left from... Yes, the one that went... No, I don't think it was the Pacific. I think it was the Chicago. I think it was like a north-south railroad before the Pacific. But maybe you're right. Maybe I'm getting that wrong. But people could go like, well, I
want to get more on Fauci stuff.
Man, like who's making money off of this? And to your point, this stuff is all over the place here. And you see it. It's like, dude, between his emails that have come out, now his diary entries, the picture's just so clear. They never thought it was racist to say that it came from a lab. They never thought it was, you know what I'm saying? Like, no, they knew it probably came from the lab and they knew they were implicated.
Yeah.
They knew that the death rate wasn't this high, but they knew that they would get a lot more power if people believed it was. And also, we can go through some more if there's others on your list here. But I got to say, dude, because part of what Rothbard is getting at in his way of how to conceive history here, and part of public choice theory or things like that, are understanding what? A kind of basic thing. It's the same insight that Mises had with economics, but with politics. What we're looking at here is human action, meaning we're viewing human actors, meaning they work like human beings work. And me and you viewer of this show, Rob and Natalie, we know a thing about how humans work because we are humans, right? So we can kind of like understand some of this. And
okay, so I'm looking in the background at things, and apparently there's new footage. The case against Tyler Robinson collapsing. And yeah, so I definitely want to take a look at that. Again, I think that Tyler Robinson and Lance Twiggs and others that were part of their group, their video game group, their Discord chat group, all that stuff need to be further investigated. And again, looking at their social media, all of that stuff, and because again, I don't trust what is being done now with all that information, right? With Lance Twiggs having immunity, like not being on the stand and stuff like that, and again, like he absolutely should be, and again, he's more complicit than people are sharing. So the fact that this guy's not in jail, I mean, obviously he's not in jail yet. There's still a court process and due diligence that needs to be done, even with Tyler Robinson. But where mistakes would be made, right? Because these were, to me, fall guys, useful idiots, whatever you want to call it, like Lee Harvey Oswald as well, and others that were part of, again, that assassination of JFK. And it's looking more into where they were in the weeks leading up, in the months leading up, in the years leading up. Who were they communicating with? What were they doing? Where were they going? Right? What were they saying? Where were they getting money from? All of these things.
One of the things that's crazy to me, Rob, here is it's not just the lies. It's not even just like the money complications. I do put this right
I
up
do
there
think that
with
the steering committee, right, indirectly, absolutely had something to do with Charlie Kirk getting assassinated. I've been saying that since the beginning and stuff like that, but again, you need proof. We need proof. So we still need to be looking into this, and more people, again, doing this independently, because I don't trust what's coming out of freaking Congress right now, or anyone, or with Kash Patel and things like that. I don't believe them, right? Even with Dan Bongino and stuff like that, I don't watch any of his stuff anymore because he's lost so much credibility. And again, he was sharing good content and still probably does from time to time. But again, I feel like he again sold us out, right? He had access to a lot of information that he could have got, right? Instead of just trusting what he was given. And yeah, so it's either he's easily duped and naive, right? And when you're coming in it where you don't trust the narrative from within, and you've been calling it out for years, and then you actually don't do it when you have the chance, or even afterwards, right? So there's probably non-disclosure sign and stuff like that, but who the fuck cares, Dan? Are you a whistleblower or are you not? What are you? Right?
It's the with like, say, the death rate. Fauci as a person, Rob, is smitten with being famous. And that's the thing that really comes through here, which is wild to think about. That at this moment when you're like, okay, he knows that he funded the lab, right? We don't know that yet, but he knows that. There's the biggest outbreak of this virus, and this guy is concerned with the fact that pretty neat that everyone on TV is talking about me.
Yeah, it's incredible how drunk on power he is, and that he doesn't seem to be all that concerned with the actual science behind the policies as much as these policies are leaving me to be more of a celebrity and to be more in power. And I mean, it's almost remarkable to try and wrap your head around a villain of that nature who will make choices that, while pretending it's the only way that you're going to live, but the choices are actually being influenced by this grants me more power as people are kind of listening to me. And at the same time, when getting in trouble, going, I never said that. That wasn't my decision. That from me, that was from all these agencies. And then he's in his diary going, oh, look, these governors saw me on television, and so they're closing the televisions. I mean, they're closing the schools, and they're going to be closing the bars. And it's just wild to see someone making such bad decisions and then just enjoying the fame that's coming from his horrible decisions.
I mean, he had, but if you remember, the famous one that we played a million times on the show is where he goes later. This is 2 years later. He goes, I never recommended we lock down everything. This is him in his diary. By the way, also, who writes a diary? Now, I don't want to insult some people.
So apparently, I was suspicious of this at first because I was under who would keep a record of incriminating evidence against themselves. Apparently, high-ranking government officials do this. My guess is it's because they want to write books later and celebrate how great they are.
Yeah.
But I think it's almost like it's a very corporate thing that if you get off a call with someone, you might kind of keep a call log, so you got a bit of a record that you can point to.
Yes.
And so I think these guys are, I think it's the opposite, where to dodge culpability, they're kind of keeping like an informal
I get what you're
record.
saying.
Yeah.
Well, here,
I'm
reading.
Let me. I still can't wrap my head around writing a diary that includes incriminating things such as the 2%.
It's unbelievable.
But apparently, from what I've seen thus far, I was on a flight last night after a gig. I got to actually read all these files and sink my teeth in. But apparently, this is like pretty common practice. I also don't know how Rand got his hands on.
Well,
these.
I will say, I think there might be some human dynamic to like, because I know I've been in this situation before. Where I've been in like well, let's say this, like when I have private communications with people who are like, I mean, I talk to people at pretty high level, like media and even in government at times and politics and stuff like that. I've had the thought before, like, you think maybe some people are listening? And I've had talks with people before where I know that person's been spied on by the feds, and I'm talking to them, and you know what, Rob? After about 3 minutes into a phone call, you completely forget that. And you just get lost in a phone call. And like I'm just making the point that like you do get sloppy. I've been mic'd on TV gigs where they mic you like a half hour before you're on, and you completely forget that you have a mic on and start talking to people in a very unguarded way because you're just, I don't know, you've had a lot of time being used to being a human, and you're not like I don't know, you're just not you're not expecting to be guarded. Oh yeah, there's a thing right here, and I'm saying all, and then I've been there before where I'm getting into all wild conversations and shit, and I'm like, oh, there's some guy in sound just hearing all of this. Anyway, this is what Fauci wrote. So I'm saying, I guess maybe when you start journaling, you just start ratting on yourself. All right, guys, let's take a moment and thank our sponsor for today's show, which is Prolon. If you want to be your most radiant this summer, check out Prolon's 5-day fasting mimicking diet. It makes it easy to target fat loss, support lean muscle, and reset your metabolism so you look and feel your best all summer long. In just 5 days, Prolon works at the cellular level to rejuvenate you from the inside out and help you hit your summer goals. Prolon, as I've been telling you about for a while now, guys, it's a plant-based nutrition program. They have soups, snacks, beverages, and they're all designed to nourish your body while keeping it in a fasting state. So you trick your cells into thinking that you're fasting, and it triggers cellular rejuvenation and renewal. It was developed over decades at USC's Longevity Institute. This is backed by top US medical centers. Prolon has been shown to support biological age reduction, metabolic health, skin appearance, fat loss with muscle protection, energy, and a healthier relationship with food. So if you're ready for your own reset, for a limited time, Prolon is offering our listeners 15% off site-wide plus a $40 bonus gift when you subscribe to their 5-day program. Just visit prolonlife.com/POTP. That's prolonlife.com/POTP to claim your 15% discount and your $40 bonus gift. prolonlife.com/POTP. All right, let's get back into the show. Here's from Dr. Fauci. I spoke with Bill de Blasio and convinced him, based on what I was saying publicly and my conversations tonight, to close the New York City schools. He has already decided, based on what I was saying on TV, or he had already decided. I went on to tell him he should close the bars and restaurants in New York City. He said he would base this on my recommendation. I had a similar call with Ann O'Leary, the COS of Governor Gavin Newsom of California, chief of staff. Ann said that based on my TV appearances today and yesterday, the governor has decided to close the schools in California as well as the bars and restaurants. When I left the White House and crossed Pennsylvania and 17th, several cars honked their horns and shouted "thank you" out the window. Well, people are honking and shouting today, Tony, but they're shouting something different. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, bless Rand Paul on this one. I know we've been criticizing him recently, but we were hoping that there might be some COVID justice. And for the first time in a couple of years, we see some headway here. And this is a great setup for him coming in to give testimony on Wednesday. And I will state a bold prediction that I hope turns out not to be true. but I'm going to guess that an old, fragile man who can't remember a single thing is going to be who shows up. But
Yeah,
I'm excited to see how much pep he still has in his step, and to what extent he wants to combat this new narrative, especially as nobody's profiting off him or off vaccines, and he's less protected. So it will be interesting if he actually has to get grilled for hours on end and has some bad moments.
Yeah, I personally am a believer that it is really important for us to get as many moments like this as we can. And don't get me wrong, this guy should go to jail for the rest of his life. I mean, I almost think it's necessary for our society to heal, for him and some others to go to jail over this stuff.
Because the normies need to see it.
Yes,
they need to see, oh, you were blatantly lied to.
You were this wrong.
And
You were
suckered
this
by
wrong.
government. Yes.
And everybody in government needs to be scared that could happen to them too if they go this far. There's got to be some line that you can't go over. I mean, dude, when you think about the cost of this shit, and it's like, dude, first of all, there are costs involved in the COVID tyranny that you cannot put a price on. There were, how many old people died alone? How many women gave birth alone with a mask on? Like how many people spent their last few days isolated from their families? There are things you cannot put a price on. Also, Rob, I mean, you could go look into some of the numbers of the absolute collapse in like cancer screenings during the time of the pandemic. And there's some doctors out there who have tried to put together, assessments of how many people are going to die. The educational gap, dude, I mean, it was, kids do bounce back in an amazing way, but it threw a major wrench into the childhood of tens of millions of kids in this country alone, let alone the rest of the world. I know several, I'm sure almost everyone does, kids who fell behind during that time period. Dude, the amount of economic devastation, I mean, again, people do their best to try to measure these things, but there's at the bare minimum, there's tens of millions of small and mid-sized businesses that have closed their doors permanently, that'll never be open again. Suicides and broken families and the enormous cost of all this shit. And by the way, we're still living through so much of this. I mean, so much of the inflation that we're dealing with is due to the money printing during COVID. So much of the supply chain issues that we dealt with over the last few years had to do with COVID. And, when you look at the young generation of people and they seem kind of crazy to you, also know a huge portion of that is that they grew up during COVID.
I'm going to mention another more silent one, which is also less quantifiable, but I think if a lot of people listening to this show are honest with themselves, they'll know what I'm talking about. But I remember like 3 years after COVID, sitting at home, watching a movie, drinking, and I was like, COVID is over. Like, there's no excuse for this. And I can only speak for myself that, like, you create some forward momentum in your life and you get things going, you develop good habits, and then the government sends you back home with nothing to do and no ability to do the things that you're trying to get done. Or, like, you could just kind of been a lazy person. You finally landed a job. You're in an office or in a groove, and they take that from you. Or you're a guy who never went to the gym. You're going to the gym every day. You're not allowed to go to the gym. I'm sure, I mean, you could probably even look at the numbers of like health rates in those years or alcoholism and whatnot. But I know that there's people out there that by now you should have gotten back on your feet. But, I bet some people, I'm not the only one who picked up some bad habits over COVID that took some time to shake off, and you lost some momentum in your career.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. Tons of people like that. I know a few people who had like real mental episodes during COVID. It was really bad for a lot of people. And the thing is that, again, it's like there's something about these years where, like I said, I have a tremendous amount of respect for the people who were good on this issue, who were there alongside us, who were kind of like fighting against all the tyranny in those days, and a special amount of contempt for the people who were pushing the lockdowns the most aggressively. But there's almost something about it where you're like, yo, guys, we can't just, I know there's a lot of crazy shit going on. And I know I'm as guilty of anyone as falling for the next shiny object, especially when the next shiny object is like a disastrous war or an economic collapse or something. It's easy, but we can't just forget that this happened. You know, like it's like, I think there's something valuable in all of us remembering. And then also, you know, I mean, look, there's a little bit of a gray area there, Rob, between like who was good and who was bad. Because as the thing went on, some people started getting good who had been bad a lot. And I'm not even getting back to like, I don't know how we parse through exactly where it was acceptable before you started getting good. Because there's a lot of people who would try to pretend that they were against this whole thing at the time. But I'm sorry, man, like this should be a litmus test for like how you judge your favorite political commentator or what group you're in or who you listen to. Like, dude, this thing was fucking obvious, man. You're telling me that we got to lock down all of society over a virus that we know next to nothing about. You're telling me that like for against all like traditional like norms and practices, we have to quarantine the healthy. But Rob, I mean, to find out that the guy at the time, this is how corrupt this guy was, Rob, that he funded the thing and knew it and lied through his teeth about it and then knew he was lying about it.
And there are still people, again, now, including myself, right, that where we're still dealing with the fallout of the huge impact this has had on our lives. And so even having to flee my home, I know that's, again, I have proof of this, and having to move like back to rural Canada, which I was going to do anyways at one point or at some point. But again, like not going to the gym. I used to go every single day or almost every single day. And again, I wasn't able to go at all. And I was still competing in wellness, right? And even through that, like went to Toronto, like a place that like, you know, like that you could compete, like you had to wear a mask and stuff like that, but you didn't have to be vaccinated. And again, they shut that down when we were there in Toronto, like the day of, right? Well, you had to arrive like the day before you're on stage because you have to do spray tanning and all that stuff. And there's meetings. And yeah, within an hour of me getting there and checking into my hotel, it was all canceled. Ridiculous. And this is what they were doing to healthy people all over Canada. Absolutely ridiculous. And people we were trying to like maintain our fitness and stuff like that, even at a minimum standard, let alone competing. And again, deeply impacted. And so I do not work out nearly as much as I used to. And again, because of the habits and stuff like that, and then again, like being further away from a gym and things like that, it's just it's a lot more time consuming. And then even my motivation to go again, I would be so much more motivated pre-lockdowns than now, and a lot of people are in that same category, right? So even me, like going to the gym all the time, competitive level, all this stuff, even for me, again, it profoundly impacted me, and ultimately my health consequently as well. Because of that, I still have my own home gym, and so I still do workouts at home, but anyway, it's not the same. And then even relapsing, I had been sober for like 4.5 years, and August of 2022, like even after everything, right? Like I just like there was just so much shit still going on, right? And still getting fucked with, right? By so many people, right? And like even like the surveillance of law enforcement fucking with me too, trying to give them videos and footage of like actual threats to my life and things like that. Didn't even want to look at it. And yes, I'm still profoundly impacted by that, and organizational betrayal, blah, 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 and others as well. And a lot of money in the courts or giving to people as part of their GoFundMes or their Give Send Goes, so that because they're still fighting in the courts. And a lot more people, it wasn't just me that relapsed and things like that. Many other people did as well. And again, even after the lockdowns, right, because of everything that had happened, right? And it was just such a struggle. A lot of divorces during this period as well. Cognitive decline in kids and things like that, or their sports being impacted. So even my nieces and nephews, right, that were playing really high level, like even lacrosse, right, because of the travel across the border and stuff like that, by not being vaccinated, again, not allowed to go, and then being pressured into it, and then still, again, even after the first shot, having heart issues. I'm not even kidding you and stuff like that, but being forced and that pressure, again, because you want to play lacrosse and stuff like that, and you want to be with your teammates, and yeah, and then again, like not being part of the team after that anyways, because you have heart issues. And anyway, so many tangents, but yeah, fallout, yeah, there are still people that are still dealing with the those impacts, impacting the education system, the medical system,
death rate, about mask efficiency, about all of it. And try to here, Natalie, let's play this clip, because I mean, it really is something here.
And I lost friends and peers that I had been working with and were like brothers to me for decades, right? Completely because of COVID and stuff like that. And what I was sharing with them, and what, and again, what they were sharing to me with me, I mean, and just not on the same page at all. And I'm like, and then again, like just destroying those relationships, and still haven't reached back out to me since. And I've tried reaching out to them, even though again I was right and they were wrong. And again, they don't even, after like decades again of being together, working together, all these things and crazy situations, and yeah, completely destroyed because of a fucking gremlin, right? I don't know what that guy's name is, but that little troll or whatever is it Lord of the Rings, or is it my precious, my precious? That's exactly who Fauci reminds me of.
There's actually, I guess, two that I had sent over. But let's play the first one that I had sent you with the media's coverage of Fauci to try to go back at the time. Let me see. Was it one of them was a Tom Elliott one, but the other one? Wait, hold on. I'm sorry. Is this the? Yeah. Okay. Let's play this one.
The single most respected voice in the pandemic. It's Dr. Anthony Fauci.
The man who's become known as America's doctor.
The nation's top infectious disease expert, Anthony Fauci.
You are seen to many as a superhero.
Dr. Anthony Fauci, American hero and New York Yankee fan.
You've done so much for this country in terms of this crisis, so I really appreciate your insight.
Who better to give us answers that we can trust than Dr. Anthony Fauci?
The perfect person to answer our questions today. Joining us now, Dr. Anthony Fauci.
Dr. Anthony Fauci. Appreciate your candor.
Dr. Fauci, appreciate the candor.
We appreciate your service to this country.
We appreciate your service.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you for your service.
Greatly appreciate your service to America.
Thank you for your
37 years of
Not
service,
military.
I believe, to 7 presidents,
Not law
and thank you for your
enforcement,
work
not fire.
over the past year.
The great news is you're sticking around in the Biden administration. We are so grateful to you, Dr. Fauci, for everything you do.
Thank you so much for everything you do.
Thank you very much for everything that you do.
Thanks so much for the work that you do.
Thank you very much for the reassurance and, as always, for all of your public service. Thank you, Dr. Fauci.
Thank you for all your guidance this past year, and it's greatly appreciated.
Dr. Fauci, on behalf of all of our viewers here in the U.S. and around the world, thanks very much for doing what you're doing. Thanks very much for joining us. Please thank your entire team as well. We are all grateful.
Get your rest because we need you.
You are one of the busiest scientists in the country right now. It is an honor to have some of your time to help us understand what is going on. I know a lot of people have a lot of questions, so we appreciate your time, sir.
We need people to continue to have faith in science. So thank you for your time, sir.
Thank you for being straight with us. Thank you for being able to come on. You will always have this show as a platform.
Sir, whenever you can be here, we'll have you. It's always an honor to have time with you. Thanks for being here.
Good enough for you, sir. It's good enough for me and my family. So thank you, Dr. Fauci.
Dr. Fauci, thank you
that
for
one.
keeping it straight. Thank you for fighting the good fight.
I am sincerely appreciative that you are not walking.
All right. We can cut it off. I think we got the point. I forgot about that. I forgot about Chuck Todd. The moderator of Meet the Press actually went, if it's good enough for you, then it's good enough for me. I will turn my brain off and defer to you now, sir. I mean, dude, look, don't ever allow one of these people ever again to look down their nose at you or the podcaster or the conspiracy theorist or I think Candace Owens has gone too far. All of you, Sam Harris, we need institutions with trust. All of you, shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
Shut the fuck up.
Oh, I trust Candace more than Fauci.
This is what they did. This is what they did when it really mattered. By the way, again, Rob, it's objective journalism. What a fucking joke, Rob. What a joke. That these guys call themselves journalists and they would view, Rob, again, no matter what the situation is, Rob, maybe, I'll concede this right here, okay? It's vague, so it's not much of a concession, but maybe there is a time where the correct course of action, Rob, is to shut down the world. Okay? But if ever there is a time where that's the right course of action, to shut down the world, and you call yourself a journalist, and someone comes on to argue to you, hey, you know what I think we should do right now is shut down the world. You would think that you wouldn't take it upon yourself to go, well, my role as a journalist right here is to shut my brain off and nod along with this guy. And if we got time at the end, probably try to kiss his ass and tell him how great I think he is. You'd probably go, we're going to be skeptical of this claim. Sir, we're gonna have to be a little bit adversarial because that is, by objectively speaking, a radical step for us to take right now. I'd look for a little bit more healthy skepticism than this. This is what they did, Rob. Just ball watch them.
Well, when he said to shut down the world, I was only making a health decision. And no, I wasn't taking into account if your business was shut down, what that would do for your health. And also when the decision was made, that wasn't me. It was all the other guys. And I don't know who's telling you that there was a mandate.
Yeah. I mean, look, dude, there's one of the things, and I think one of the best things about COVID, I will say this, and I think we're still living, in many ways, we're living in kind of the post-COVID reality, is that this is what blew up the system. In a lot of ways, like whatever it is, and there's benefits and costs to this, like everything else. I think the benefits far outweigh the costs. But I remember saying this around 24 during the election, where the media would be running certain games that they would try to play. And I remember just being like, yo, dude, this is not going to work anymore after COVID. I got in public arguments with Rabe Suave and Michael Tracy at the time, when I had said that Donald Trump winning again was going to destroy the corporate media. And both of them had argued, and I understand why they made the argument, that because Russiagate, they go, no, look, dude, Donald Trump had their biggest ratings when Donald Trump was in, and I was like, yeah, dude, but they got that off.
I'm gonna play it again more. I have to leave by 2 because I do have people coming over, and then I have a Zoom conference at 3. Why am I giving you my schedule? Sorry. Anyways, but I did want to speak on Justin Trudeau and Mark Carney and Chrystia Freeland and Bill Blair and these clowns. What they were sharing at the time and even afterwards was along the same lines, and completely dehumanizing and impacting people's lives, their contracts, etc. And I'm just going to give like a sample of just some headlines. But again, calling us seditionists, terrorists, a fringe minority, misogynist, sexist, pseudoscientific, blah, 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 blah. So Trudeau to unvaccinated, it's never too late to do the right thing. So there's a video on that. Place more restrictions on the unvaccinated. And that was January 5th, 2022. Okay. Right? So like a couple of weeks before the Freedom friggin' Convoy, he was not letting down on this stuff. Trudeau, Canadians can't travel by plane or train without vaccine. Right? That's August of 2021. Justin Trudeau comments on unvaccinated tax idea January 12th, 2022. Right? So again, that's within like 2 weeks before the Freedom Convoy, still pushing that stupid stuff. Yeah, so COVID-19, Trudeau says there will be consequences for certain individuals who choose not to get fully vaccinated. Let's see what this one is. This is Global News. Terrible media outlet. Yeah, so Trudeau says there will be consequences for federal workers who are not fully vaccinated. And my goodness, yes, there was. People that I know personally that were kicked out while pregnant, heroes, combat arms heroes as female, really hard trades to get into. And at the time, by the way, when it was based on merit, right? Like when we actually had standards and not just pushing DEI, ESG stuff. So many people got screwed over. Muted. Let's see what he has to say. And yeah, the August 2021. After the VAERS were released, after all of that stuff, like over a year after we knew it was a lab leak, confirmed.
We've made the decision that federal public servants need to be fully vaccinated. That is something that we're also applying to everyone who gets on a plane or a train in the coming months in Canada. That's a decision that we're making in order to keep Canadians.
They didn't lock down people coming, leaving Wuhan to come into all of our countries. Didn't stop that, but our own internal travel. So even for myself, for my work, I traveled a lot, right, for obvious reasons, and I was not able to do that anymore. So even by virtue, again, of these mandates alone, a lot of people within my industry got fucked over, right? Or again, got vaccinated, or other. Anyways, there was ways around it, but I did not use the ways that I could have used, right? Even though I could have. Anyways, I'll just keep it at that because sometimes we work in the gray. I don't want to say too much. where was I going with this?
Safe in order to put an end to
Yeah.
this pandemic crisis in Canada. And in order to do that, we will be working with the collective bargaining agents, with the unions, with the various employers within the public sphere, the federal sphere, to ensure that we move forward. But the bottom line is, if anyone who doesn't have a legitimate
and there was an increase in crime. And so I was the use of force instructor for all the security guards for all the the LCBOs, the liquor stores in the province of Ontario, and it was with 360 Secure. So, and again, they shut down by like mid 2022 just because it was just like it just got too complicated and stuff like that with everything, and also people were not getting paid. Like there was like some financial stuff. Again, had nothing to do with people that were training the guards or working with the guards or in other capacities. It had everything to do with people working in AHR and then that financial team of DEI hires. Anyways, I shouldn't say that, but it's true. And yeah, and so like, and they were just so soft on crime, and so like even myself, like going to Toronto, like that, like talking to like the head of security, that actually works with like the detectives and stuff like that at all of these different branches and stuff like that. And I've gone on boards too and talked with people about recommendations on how to unfuck this, right? With all these policies and measures, right, that our own government was putting in place at cabinet level, right? That was making things even worse then. And so they were talking about like not having the guards have batons or handcuffs or like spray, like any of that stuff. And I'm like, well, I did not agree with that at all. I'm like, yeah, they should absolutely be able to have these and be protected because like there's more violent crimes. And we saw, we had all the stats, right? Anyways, and very thoroughly done, right? But it has to do with like the time of days when there was more like crimes or theft and things like that, and like the day of the week and stuff like that, and what was being stolen, blah blah blah. And again, it was becoming more organized. Where I wasn't just a trainer, by the way. I was also someone that like did the job at the same time, right? And so like in my network, that happens a lot, so that you're still like aware of like there's no skill fade, but also because again, like it's anyway, it's part of the job. To train and still conduct these things. And so I was doing the private investigator work, and again I was going outside of LCBOs in areas that were more high risk. And again, it was getting fucking bad. And again, people were just saying let them go, right? So like after like if it was under a certain amount of money, right, for the bottles they were taking or whatever, they're like no, just let them go and stuff like that. Like even though like there were people that they were allowing in, knowing that they would be possibly stealing and stuff like that, and literally just not being able to do anything about it, right? And so there's been again like an escalation in fights and stuff like that. And again, these guys are not properly prepared in order to deal with people who are drugged up or stoned criminals, and a lot of them are, again with these like these homeless shelters and stuff like that. And again, I've done a lot of volunteer work with the homeless shelters as well over the years. And yeah, but again, there's a lot of crime in these areas, and people who are murderers, people who should be deported, people who are repeat offenders and stuff like that, and they are not getting jail time or the proper rehabilitation that they need, right? And so they keep on, again, it's very dangerous for the guards, right? They were getting bit, they were getting stabbed, they were getting like shot at, you friggin' name it, and they were detaining people, again, who were literal murderers and stuff like that. And then even that handover piece with law enforcement, it would take hours, right? So they're saying like, just let people go. You're not even supposed to do that. Right? Like once you detain I'm not going to get into all of that stuff, but once you detain someone, like you can't release them, right? Like even if it's a citizen's arrest, it's like you have to like wait till law enforcement arrives, and they're the ones that again conduct the handover and carry on from there. And because again, there was just so much crime in these areas, and we don't have we don't have enough law enforcement in order to manage this piece, or security professionals. And so why are we allowing more people again into like these major city centers areas and having these like safe injection sites where there's a lot more crime that happens around these areas too, right? When you put these in place. But no one's listening, because no one in cabinet or the House of Commons have ever done a real job where there's real risk or danger or it's difficult a day in their lives, including this clown.
Medical reason for not getting fully vaccinated.
Anyways, I don't even like listening to him. So, and again, yeah, he's never going to get jail. But he's a complete embarrassment to most Canadians. So he's got that legacy.
off Russiagate. Let them try a Russiagate now. After COVID, no one's buying it anymore, dude. And it's really not anything, nothing delivered a blow to the legacy media and just institutions across America like COVID. Not the wars, not the Great Recession, not, Russiagate. Nothing else did quite what COVID did. It realigned everything because there was nothing to kind of like, and this is the best part of it, there was nothing to wake people up to like, it's not whether you agree with this policy or disagree with this policy. It's whether you look at that montage we just played, Rob, and whether you have any illusion still that you were just watching the news. That's really kind of the most important red pill, is that you go, oh, what we just watched, like the blue pill perception is that that's the news. They may get it right, they may get it wrong, but that's the news. Those are adults in suits and ties, and they're telling you what a senator said about the Pentagon, and this is the news. And then when you look at it now, just with a few years, right, Rob? We're not looking back at the 1940s from the 1980s or something like that. We're just looking back at the year 2020 from 2026. And what you look at the montage, you go, oh, this is so obvious now. That is a coordinated propaganda effort, and all of them are on the same team. All of them know exactly what we're doing. They're not there to interview Dr. Fauci and get the latest information about the virus, Rob. This is WWF. They're there to get him over. In the same way that if I'm a wrestler, and if you're Andre the Giant and you're fighting Hulk Hogan, your job isn't simply, your job is to help get Hulk Hogan over and take all the energy you used to have as.
All right. People are early. I did link the this video, so again, I would love to get on a podcast or even talk to Dave Smith, because we share a lot of similar, I would say ideologies, whatever you want to call it, and but there's also stuff that I would be interested in talking to him about that I don't think that he would want to be discussed live. So anyway, I do have to go though. So on that note, I will leave it at that, and I hope that everyone has a wonderful rest of your day.